trying to figure out what they're going to do here to get this thing moving forward, especially on offense, and try to add some more offense here for this Denver team without question.
And Nick, they did some things this offseason. You know, Melvin Gordon, Graham Glasgow, Nick Van Nett, Ohio State guy, all signed up this offseason to try to help them out there. The pre-draft talk seemed a little focused more on receiver from some people, thinking that there's some great ones, right? Justin Jefferson's there, T. Higgins is there. Maybe they need corner. What's your thinking there, offense versus defense, and the importance at this pick?
Well, still, again, with Drew Lock winning 4 of the last 5 games here to close down the season, you got to go offense. You got to go wide receiver. And without question, it's got to be one of those guys. Yes, Justin Jefferson, Denzel Mims out of Baylor, 2 guys that you would think maybe if Denver were to try to – we saw this last year with Denver in the second round. They moved back a little bit and got a little more quality picks. Perhaps they could slide down the draft board here. Still not out of the question. Still pick up a Justin Jefferson, which I know they're very high on, maybe a Denzel Mims. But if you're John Elway right now, my gut, my intuition, everything we've picked up over there at Broncos headquarters leads me to think that it has to be Jerry Jeudy, and that is, I'm getting a thumbs up, guys. So Jerry Jeudy, without question, arguably the best wide receiver in the entire draft class. He falls in the Broncos' lap at number 15, and this is a former Blitnikoff Award winner, guys, and someone that I think the Broncos are going to be very happy to have. Drew Lock, Cortland Sutton, and now you pair that with Noah Fant at tight end, and now Jerry Jeudy, one of the most prolific wide receivers in Alabama history, mind you, going to the Denver Broncos at 15. I think we'll all be pretty satisfied with that pick here in Broncos country.
Nick, that was smoothly delivered, my man. I just had my opportunity to grab the photo of Jeudy here and let people see his work. I'm going to come right back to you on that. I just want to show the audience at home a little bit more about Judy's history. When you look at the resume for Jerry Jeudy, obviously playing at a very high level with a tremendous program at Alabama, but he can run. He runs the 40 with it looks like he's just sort of floating as he runs along there, and he runs crisp routes. He gets open. He won the Bolitnikoff a couple years ago. Again, first-team All-American, caught a lot of passes in an offense where he was sharing the workload with some high-end receivers. You already heard about Henry Ruggs and his capability. So, Nick, I'm going to come right back to you. What would be, in your mind, the next biggest need here for Denver to try to solve over the next couple days?
Well, they still have some, without question. You're trying to keep up with the likes of the Kansas City Chiefs and that explosive offense. But for me, I think you'll now see a little bit of a change, a little bit of direction. If it's not on the offensive line, they still have a lot of need at the cornerback position as well as the middle linebacker. They've got 1 pick in the second round, but they followed up with 3 in the third, guys. So they got some work to do tomorrow, and they definitely need to fill some of those needs. They got a lot of depth on the defensive line right now. The offensive line has been a big bugaboo here for the last 4 to 5 years. Garrett Bowles, not exactly getting the job done at the left tackle slot. They'd like to get some competition over there for sure. They got a need at center right now, and certainly more of a need as well at the cornerback position, having just let Chris Harris Jr. walk to the Chargers this offseason. And again, the middle linebacker spot will be a spot that the Broncos will look to address here moving forward. But yeah, to sum up this pick with Jerry Jeudy, again, I have to imagine a lot of Broncos fans pretty happy with that. Again, as I mentioned, trying to keep up with the likes of Tyreek Hill, Patrick Mahomes, the Kansas City Chiefs, defending Super Bowl champs, 21 points a game, not exactly getting it done out here in the AFC West.
Nick, well done, sir. Good seeing you. Thanks very much for joining us tonight with the insight on the Broncos draft. And obviously, they've taken a step forward there. That's a really good pick, 15 picks into the first round. They're going to love that. We're going to move to pick 16 now. We're going to go halfway through the first round, and it is the Atlanta Falcons who are on the board with the 16th pick, another 7-9 year last year. Boy, they can throw it. 5th in total offense, the most pass attempts in the league. Matt Ryan probably still resting his arm. 3rd in passing yardage. They struggled, though, against the pass, finishing 23rd in points allowed. Back to Jarrett Payton, who rejoins us from Chicago. On the 16th pick here with Atlanta, Matt Ryan, we mentioned a moment ago, threw the ball a ton, 26 touchdowns, 14 picks. Julio Jones is catching passes there. That's a pretty good place to start a football team, right? I mean, you would think that they would have an opportunity to build a competitive offense with those 2 guys.
Well, definitely. I mean, they have off the firepower that they want. Hey, that's not the issue. The issue for this ball club is on the defense side.
All right, we're going to come back to Jarrett in just a moment. We'll get his audio situated. We obviously, with Atlanta, there's a lot of ways they could go here. For more information on the Falcons, we go to John Hart from WJBF in Savannah. John, I want to talk to you about Devontae Freeman being gone. They got Todd Gurley, really good player. I'm just wondering, is that a big enough difference maker when you consider, again, Matt Ryan's there, Julio Jones is there? Does that triumvirate, if you will, work well enough to make Atlanta more competitive offensively?
Yeah, Jared, I don't think this Falcons team should have any trouble scoring points this year. They're going to make history this fall, becoming the first team to start 10 former first-round draft picks on offense. And you mentioned Todd Gurley coming in, the departure of Devontae Freeman. They also like Quadri Allison and Ito Smith at running back. So I think they feel like they're set. Todd Gurley shouldn't have to be an every down back for the Atlanta Falcons this year. The points should come. If they don't, I can assure you that's going to fall squarely on offensive coordinator Dirk Cutter, who's already made some Falcons fans a little unhappy with his, shall we say, vanilla play calling last year in his first year back with the Falcons. So the offense shouldn't be a problem. Defense, as Jarrett had begun to say there, that is where the question mark lies. I thought actually I'd be talking to you a lot earlier tonight. Most Falcons fans felt like they would trade up into the first round, perhaps to take one of those top cornerbacks, but of course Okudah's gone, C.J. Henderson is gone. So Thomas Dimitroff, the general manager of the Falcons, who was a wheeler and dealer, a gambler on draft night, decided to stand pat. So here we are at 16, and I'll tell you what, Jared, my nice typed out notes that I worked so hard on, most of those are gone now.
Right.
And I have a lot of scribbled stuff that I've worked on here. But I'll tell you this, the first name that stood out to me for this Falcons team is the last name that's still available on my list. And that comes down to K'Lavon Chaisson out of LSU. This Falcons team has had a devil of a time getting to the quarterback. They need to get pressure on opposing quarterbacks. You remember when you used to play backyard football and the quarterback would stand there forever and while everybody ran back and forth trying to get open?
Yep.
That's what it was like watching this Falcons defense at times last year. If they can get pressure on the quarterback, they can be a contender this year, and I think Chaisson's the guy.
Well, look, your preparation is going to pay off for you. You know, you didn't do all that homework for nothing. You came into this prepared, and we actually showed the audience a moment ago the needs for Atlanta, and it's exactly right there. When you look at defensive line, pass rushers at corner, they struggled obviously a year ago, gave up a lot of yards in that game. Could use another running back maybe to give some depth there, maybe support Gurley. If they want one of those, they got the best ones in the draft available right now. And obviously Chaisson, you mentioned a moment ago, just a phenomenal athlete for LSU, one of many. So the pick is in for Atlanta, so we'll hold right here. And John, I'm going to come right back to you for reaction on that 16th pick. Against, we are running right through the first round here, and so far this thing is motoring on. We're at 10:11 Eastern time here, and so far it's been an excellent crop of talent. No crazy surprises so far, only one trade. Again, that pick where basically San Francisco and Tampa swap picks. And that's virtually it. We have gone to form as expected. In a moment, we'll be sending our coverage out to KLAS in Las Vegas. A very exciting night there. Obviously, they've got a lot of special guests planned as they will take you through the back half of this opening round of the NFL draft. Again, just the first round tonight, rounds 2 and 3 tomorrow. The rest of the rounds through round 7 come up Saturday. And so many great players are still available when you get into day 3 even of the NFL draft. So that pick is in for Atlanta, and we'll be looking at a little bit of, I would be really surprised if it's not a defensive player here for Atlanta at least. We'll see how that materializes for him. Again, a couple other options for Atlanta. I like the depth idea at running back. I think it wouldn't hurt them. Todd Gurley won't be there forever. He might be a couple-year player. We'll see. Obviously, with the Rams, Gurley had some moments where he took a step back, and in their Super Bowl run was not the every down back for the Rams in that push. So just curious to see what he will need to do there from a depth standpoint at that position. The pick is into the commissioner, and we await his word. And that pick is going to be a defensive player. It's A.J. Terrell, who is a cornerback from Clemson and a very, very talented player on an uber talented football team. Terrell in the defensive backfield for Clemson, simply dominant. Tremendous player, great range, cover skills. He's got all of those checklist things you kind of want. And we'll give you his resume. When you talk about guys that have an opportunity to go to these bigger schools like Clemson, Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, they seem to come NFL ready because of the competition. And undoubtedly, A.J. Terrell, he fits that mold. First team All-ACC this year, 37 tackles. Again, a guy who didn't get challenged every down because he scared a lot of teams. But this guy has great skill and great speed. I want to go back to John now. John Hart, let's talk about that pick and the fit for the Atlanta Falcons.
Yeah, what do I know? I thought it was going to be Chase. Didn't go line. But, here's the thing. The Falcons do have two major needs, and we talked about the line, and the other one obviously is in the defensive secondary because they parted ways with their top corner, Desmond Trufant, due to cap reasons. Falcons fans, a fan favorite, so they have to fill that hole, and I guess they feel like that A.J. Terrell, who's a local favorite here in this part of the country out of Clemson, is the guy, 6'1", 195. Best remembered probably by most people a couple of years ago. He had the big pick six in the title game against Alabama, a couple of picks last year. So there were a couple of ways they could have gone at corner. There were a few names like Jeff Gladney out of TCU and Christian Fulton from LSU. They had also were rumored to be looking at, but it's going to be A.J. Terrell, Clemson, crossing the border into Atlanta, so we'll see.
All right, John, thank you very much. We appreciate that. And that, with pick 16, wraps up our coverage. Real quick, want to go back to Jarrett Payton in Chicago. Jarrett, your thoughts so far on what we've seen?
Can you hear me, Jay?
Sure do.
I couldn't hear you. It went out. What'd you ask me?
No problem. But I just want to get a real quick thought on your thoughts so far about picks 1 through 16. I think it's kind of chalk so far. No big surprises. What's your thought?
Man, I just see the amount of talent that's going around the NFL, and a lot of these teams are really going to get their needs, and they're filling those needs. And I think just long term, we're going to see some of these guys, and we know that first round picks are supposed to come in and be impacts right away, especially with the offensive line depth that we see in this draft. That is amazing. And I think as well, the receivers, and I think probably the biggest thing is we're going to be looking back on is seeing how these quarterbacks that have gone so far, how they've done so well in their careers.
Jarrett, it has been a pleasure to work with you this evening there in Chicago. Really enjoyed it. And, sir, we've only just begun. We're merely handing the baton over to Chris Matthews and the crew out in Las Vegas right now to take you through the remainder of the opening round here as we pick it up at pick number 17. Good evening, Chris.
Well, good evening, guys. Thank you very much, Jarrett. And hello and welcome once again to Las Vegas, home of the Las Vegas Raiders. Grab those unused peanuts and Cracker Jacks. No baseball. It's the NFL Draft, the only show in town. And like the circus, despite the stay-at-home orders, the show must go on. So we're going to have some fun here as we take it to the conclusion of round one. Joining you tonight from Las Vegas, Kenny White, CEO of Kenny White Sports, knows betting numbers and trends as well as anybody here in Las Vegas. Also, Brandon Marshall, fifth-round pick in 2012, parlayed that into a decade, well, almost a decade with the NFL. Owns a Super Bowl ring, Super Bowl 50. Welcome, Brandon, my colleague, Ron Futuro. Welcome, everybody, as we continue on with the NFL Draft here at the conclusion now of round one. Okay, let's head to the trenches now. It seems like everybody can use a better offensive lineman. Dallas has the 17th pick. For more on what they may have to do right here, let's head out to Wes Moore from our affiliate, KARK. Hi, Wes. I'll tell you what, this is going to be an interesting pick for Dallas. Lots of people have kind of changed around right here with the number 17th pick. What do you see?
I think he's the kind of guy who would look perfect with the. Oh man, I thought this was an easy pick. K'Lavon Chaisson out of LSU, a defensive end. The Cowboys need defensive help. They need defensive end. They need cornerback. I don't think they're going cornerback right now. But then all of a sudden, CeeDee Lamb keeps falling and falling and falling. And now, could he fall into the Cowboys' lap? They have Amari Cooper. They have Michael Gallup. But the problem is they have nothing after those two guys. If something happens to Gallup, if something happens to Amari Cooper, they're left with one wide receiver. Teams start doubling that wide receiver, and all of a sudden you don't have a passing game. So I could see the Cowboys going with CeeDee Lamb here. They're very familiar with him. Remember, he plays at Oklahoma. They play down in Dallas every year against Texas, so they are familiar with CeeDee Lamb. You look at those three guys guys under Mike McCarthy's offense with Dak Prescott, Ezekiel Elliott, all of a sudden you have some weapons for Dak to throw to. I think they're very tempted to take CeeDee Lamb here to have 3 explosive wide receivers and a little emergency backup in case somebody gets hurt. But do you ignore the defensive side of the ball with Chase on? That's a big need at defensive end. I think this decision has gotten a lot tougher for Jerry Jones and his staff.
Wes, speaking of Jerry Jones, let me ask you about Jerry Jones. Having to have the 3 the coaches sequestered with the owner here, now Jerry Jones is such a hands-on guy. Has it made it kind of difficult for the Cowboys to deal with this?
If you want to do that, it's tempting here with Lamb or Jefferson.
Oh, no. They've let Will McClay take care of the draft for years. And Jason Garrett had a very hands-on approach also. And if you take a look back at the Cowboys' previous drafts, the drafts got a lot better when they hired Jason Garrett. He is very good at player personnel, and he got with Will. They did a very good job in the drafts the last 7-8 years. This is what's interesting for a lot of people around here. Garrett's gone. Here comes McCarthy. McCarthy wasn't the one pulling the trigger in Green Bay. He was the head coach, but the GM there was making the picks for the draft. So what will McCarthy's role in this draft be? That's been a big question mark around here. He's an offensive coach. We'll see what he does.
Like Wes, right now the commissioner is making that pick, so we're going to keep it right there with you as he makes the announcement here at pick number 17, so you can analyze this thing. You're thinking CeeDee Lamb, perhaps CeeDee Lamb is the guy. CeeDee Lamb is the pick. So, Wes, let me ask you, what do you think of CeeDee Lamb? You mentioned Oklahoma. All those Cowboy fans know, and they're very familiar with this guy.
By the way, his
I tell you what, I've watched a lot of CeeDee Lamb too, and he was, and look, you were in SEC territory, so I'm very familiar with Ruggs and Judy, great wide receivers, but CeeDee Lamb is something else. He was a man amongst boys in the secondary when he caught the ball, so tough to tackle. Now, the interesting thing is the Cowboys really need a slot receiver. I don't know if CeeDee Lamb is that slot receiver, but you can easily move Michael Gallup. Amari Cooper can play wherever, so maybe you see more of Amari Cooper in the slot for the Cowboys. But with these 3 guys, I mean, guys, you can start looking around the NFL at the tandems, or I guess the triplets of wide receivers. You got to put these Cowboys wide receivers right there at the top of the conversation now with Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb, and Michael Gallup. Michael Gallup just has exploded upon the scene for the Cowboys and become a very good number 2 wide receiver. You know, they lost Randall Cobb this past offseason. He signed with the Houston Texans. That was their slot wide receiver, and Randall Cobb meant a lot to this offense. So now all of a sudden you slide CeeDee Lamb into that 3-man rotation, and the Cowboys have 3 very good wide receivers. You can see why now defensive back is so important in the NFL. If you can't get to the quarterback, if you don't have a great defensive end, defensive tackle that can get to the quarterback, those wide receivers are going to get open. So Cowboys, that offense, they get Dak away. They may not get Dak a contract yet, but they just got him a great weapon to throw to.
All right. Hey, Wes Moore, we appreciate your time. Thank you very much. Good luck to the Cowboys as that 17th pick. CeeDee Lamb. Dolphins are up next. But let's talk about what the Cowboys did right here. Kenny, I want to bring you in here because I'll tell you what, CeeDee Lamb fell. He was projected as the 8th best recruit or prospect, and he falls all the way to 17 to the Cowboys.
Yeah, a lot of money on CeeDee Lamb, too, to go under his betting number. It was down to 12.5 today. So very shocking that he slips that far. You know what? Sometimes they needed a defensive player, but sometimes the best defense is a great offense. The Kansas City Chiefs proved that this year.
All right, so the Dallas Cowboys get this guy that you're seeing right here on your television or your social media, Facebook or website. That is CeeDee Lamb. And Brandon Marshall, I want to ask you, what do you think of CeeDee falling all the way to number 17 to the Dallas Cowboys?
Well, I think it was crazy that he fell. I thought the Denver Broncos were really going to take him, but I mean, this is crazy. They're getting Dak, a great weapon. You know, they didn't want to pay him, so he's going to prove it this year. He has a multitude of weapons to throw to, a great offensive line and a running game, so it's great for the Cowboys.
No, he's been fun to watch at Oklahoma, and CeeDee Lamb, a player. Now it's interesting that 3-headed monster in Dallas. You got Dak, you got Ezekiel, you have Amari Cooper. Now they've got some depth to that, some guts behind it, some depth. to that offensive machine. Their offense was pretty good last year, sixth in the NFL.
Yeah.
So it just got better.
Oh, absolutely, got way better. And I think with Mike McCarthy, a great coach, a great offensive mind, he's going to put things in place for everybody. It's going to be great.
I think he did okay with the Packers back in the day. Yeah, okay. All right. There was an issue with the quarterback there or something. We heard. All right, Chris.
You know what's interesting also, Kenny, when you think about now, Chaseon's still available out there, and he's a guy that also, hey, you have to maybe look at him. I mean, the Raiders are coming up here with the 19th pick.
Yeah, they do. That'd be an amazing edge rusher. They could use him, disrupt the quarterback in the opponent's team. So, yeah, I think that's probably somebody they're looking at right now. I was looking at the next pick with the Dolphins coming up. They're going to get their second pick. They may need an offensive lineman or a running back, but it's very rare that teams pick a running back in the first round.
Well, it's going to be very, very interesting. Dolphins are back on the clock right now with that 18th pick. It's going to be interesting to see what happens now. 3 picks in the first round, and this will be their second pick. And I'll tell you what, you know, when you think of the quarterbacks and so forth, at this point in time, Justin Herbert's gone, Tua's gone, of course, Burrow's gone. It's kind of interesting, Ron, when you think about this, how the draft has kind of unfolded in this first round. Some of these guys that have slipped and some have not.
But still pretty close to, I think, what most of the projections were. There's been a few little minor changes, Brandon, and some things that have happened out there that have been sort of interesting. But at this point, Miami, they've got 14 picks in the draft, 3 first-rounders. They, of course, need everything. You could put every position on the field. What do they need? Now they have the quarterback situation taken care of with Tua there at the quarterback. So they go with the lefty. What do they go to now, do you think, with this pick coming up at 18?
Yeah, I think they need to shore up that offensive line, get him a tackle or a guard. You know, I know Tua has had some injury issues in college, so just get him offensive lineman.
Yes, he has had that. They've talked about that earlier, but still took him number 5. Kenny, what are they looking for? If they're looking for an offensive lineman here at this point, who's out there? What do they like? There's some guys, some big beef guys certainly available in this first round of the draft.
Yeah, you know, I like Cesar Ruiz from Michigan. He's a center, but can play guard, so he's very versatile. He's going to be one of the top interior linemen in the NFL for years to come. And Ezra Cleveland, a Boise State young man, offensive tackle, are my 2 guys that I have next on the board if I'm looking for an offensive lineman.
Let's talk about Jordan Love, the quarterback. He's still out there. Some people are thinking there was some mock drafts saying, hey, maybe the Raiders pick up a quarterback here to kind of spice things up with Mariota, Carr. I mean, could you see? Let me ask you, hey, Brandon, could you see? Brandon, could you see Jordan Love maybe coming to the Raiders?
Absolutely not. You know, in free agency they paid Marcus Mariota a bunch of money, so I think they're going to battle it out between those 2. You know, we'll see. I think the Raiders need to go defensive back. They need cornerback help bad. I think, you know, actually, you know, I know their pass defense was one of the lowest in the NFL last year, so they need help.
Yeah, the quarterback room is pretty crowded already for the Raiders. Certainly, you got Derek Carr with his $25 million contract. Mariota now has the highest contract for a backup quarterback anywhere. I don't know if there's room for a third person in there, but it has been talked about, certainly. The Raiders like to trick people a little bit, too. I think they like to throw things out there every once in a while to throw. Mike Mayock is used to doing that, throwing up a red flag somewhere to somebody to think they're doing something else. But the Dolphins pick is in, Chris. We're getting ready to announce that one.
Yeah, it's in right now. And, of course, you look at the Dolphins, and they need an offensive tackle. That was a priority. They need an offensive lineman. They needed a safety. They needed an edge rusher. They needed a running back. They need a lot. Unfortunately, they have all those picks because they needed all those picks. We're waiting for the commissioner to make that. How fun has this been, really, when you think about the commissioner in his basement, getting calls and getting Skypes and so forth from the general managers, the coaches, and then making that pick from his basement? It's been so unique.
It has been unique. I mean, it runs very smoothly. So far, this has been great. I think a little over 2 hours for the first half of the first round. I think it's been outstanding. I'm surprised very few trades. I'm wondering because this is a virtual draft now.
Yeah, it's been interesting when you think about what these general managers and coaches have done from their living rooms. No trades. It was just San Francisco swapping one spot right there earlier in the round. And like you mentioned, the speed of this first round is buzzing by. The pick is in. We're waiting, of course, the Dolphins-Steelers trade right now. There has been a trade, which is kind of interesting. So the Dolphins get the 2020 first-round pick. So that'll be the 18th overall. The 6th and 7th picks. The Steelers get Fitzpatrick. That's what they did before. before. So now we're waiting to see if they make another trade. Do they keep this pick? Do they go on? The pick is in. So we're waiting for Brian Flores and the general manager, Chris, right there, Grier, to see what they're going to do with this pick. What's the anticipation now?
I'm thinking offensive lineman for them. And it could be, though, they're probably looking at Chason. They're thinking, how did he slip so far? What happened? He's a great character guy, 4.68 speed off the edge. He's going to be a big-time disruptor for any defense, and that may be where they're looking at right now.
Well, it's going to be interesting when you think of the Dolphins and the pick is in. The commissioner has it in his hand. And so, by the way, behind him right there, the people who boo, for every boo, $1 from Bud Light goes to the efforts there, the charity efforts. So that's kind of interesting. Up to $500,000 tonight. So Austin Jackson is the pick here. Austin Jackson, the pick. And Kenny, I know you're scouring through your notes right here. Tell me a little bit about Austin Jackson.
Yeah, big-time left tackle. Another Pac-12 guy that's been a great starter at USC. I think that this was a very good pick. This is not a guy that people thought would go in the first round. I think his under and over number was around 34.5. So the offensive linemen are really stacking up. The under and over number was 6.5 in the first round. I think they're definitely going to hit that with Jackson going this early.
You know, you think of the guy, too. His grandfather, Melvin, won the 1974 championship there at USC. Here's a picture of, or you can't see that because we're watching TV, but this guy has been a football guy his whole life. Enjoyed football, grew up football, USC. Brandon, when you think of USC football, what do you think of?
Oh, man, dominance. Dominance.
Tailbacks.
Absolutely, tailbacks, skill position, dominance. And, you know, this guy's come for that same pedigree. So, you know, I think the Dolphins are doing an amazing job right now in free agency and the draft. I look forward to watching them this year.
No, they're doing well, certainly. It's fun. It's fun to see. The Miami franchise, 1972, of course, they went through the season undefeated. That's the historic season when they went through the entire season undefeated. By the way, I want to mention, Brandon Marshall, you played on that Denver Broncos team that won the Super Bowl.
Absolutely.
What, is it 4 years ago?
4 years ago.
4 years ago.
I'm getting old.
As linebacker, and it was defense that did the job for that team to win the Super Bowl. Peyton Manning, a quarterback. Okay, he's going to the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
But defense in this draft here, what are you seeing with some of the linebackers? So far, one linebacker taken, but with Isaiah Simmons. But what else do you see here with some of the linebackers in this draft?
Yeah, I mean, Kenneth Murray, the guy is a speedster. He's fast. He's very instinctive. He's athletic. I think he'll go pretty soon here, maybe to the Eagles. That's what I'm looking at. They need linebacker help. They just let go of Nigel Bradham. You know, so there's a couple different guys. A guy from Alabama. You know, these guys are going to start falling and start going. But, you know, linebacker is the core of the defense. Everybody needs a linebacker. Come on now.
And how about a linebacker? A linebacker that can also, like, can also play defensive back, can play strong safety,
Absolutely.
can move all in the secondary, too. Is crazy to see how capable he is of what he does. It's been fun to see.
And I was going to say, Brandon, you mentioned, we were talking earlier, how everything's changed with the athletes today. How guys like Isaiah Simmons can play safety, can play corner. Just linebacker. The system's changed, hasn't it?
Absolutely. And, you know, he's going to Arizona. I know Vance Joseph's defense. You know, he runs the 3-4, a lot of man coverage, cover 3. I'm interested to see where Vance is going to put him. The guy is so athletic and so versatile. He's 6'4", 230, runs a 4.3. You know, I don't know where he's going to play. You know, I know they picked up a guy in free agency at an inside linebacker. So, you know, this guy's just going to be a jack of all trades.
He'll play wherever he wants to play.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Hey, the Raiders have 3 minutes left. Now, they picked Henry Ruggs III with that first pick. Speedster, a fast guy. They got to be happy with that. Now with the 19th pick, what will they do here? There's a lot of possibilities. What do you think they're going to do here, Kenny?
You know, this is great because the first 10 picks are usually in order, but now we start to get different guys. Austin Jackson going that we didn't expect that early. Chamath Clayson's still available. The CeeDee Lamb dropped so far. I think it could be Chason as a guy that they could be looking at. I would look at Cesar Ruiz. I said I really like him because his versatility. He can play center and he can play guard.
How about this Diggs? What about this guy? Trevin Diggs out of Alabama. Maybe they go that way?
Yep, that's the next best corner. Trevin Diggs would be the next best corner for them to pick right now if that's where they're looking.
Well, let's see. What do you think about this, Marshall? Brandon, could you see that happening?
Absolutely. I was just thinking about that. You know, like I said, they need a cornerback. So I think they can go Diggs, and he comes from that Alabama, that championship pedigree. So I think he's a good
They took Garyon Conley last year, a year before last, first year. And he was eventually traded, certainly, was Conley out of Ohio State. certainly a good pick. I think he'll be
All
a very
right, so
good,
let's
a very
see.
good wideout.
The pick is now in. Here's Commissioner Roger Goodell. This is historic again. The first guy, Henry Ruggs III, with the very first pick for the Las Vegas Raiders. Now here's the second pick, Commissioner Roger Goodell, and he announces the pick. And let's see, what do you? We thought maybe chasing, right? Let's just see what happens here. So, and he's kind of taking his time. Look at it. You know what I think he might be announcing right now? We can't hear him, but throughout this draft, they were going to announce at some point that Las Vegas was going to host the 2022 NFL draft. Nice. So that might be what he is announcing right now as we see the beautiful stadium. Everybody's talking about this stadium being from Tron or the Death Star Allegiant Stadium. So here we go. Look at the people booing behind him. So there's another 15, 20 bucks right there. And the pick is in, and the Las Vegas Raiders select, as we wait, he's taking his time, with the second pick in history for the Las Vegas Raiders. It is Damon Arnette. So what about this now? I'll tell you what. Dig around. Arnette, Fort Lauderdale kid, has a 3-month-old son named Tyson, nicknamed Ace. This guy was, in 2019, a second-team All-Big Ten player. So what do you think of Damon Arnette?
Yeah, Arnett's got great speed, great hips. He's a great cover guy, and you know he's been playing with one of the best corners in football for years now in Okuda. So he's learned a lot. This is another pick that's completely off the board. Arnette was not in anybody's wheelhouse at this juncture.
Boy, a lot of Ohio State Buckeyes are coming off the board, aren't they?
Yeah, I wonder why. Alabama, LSU, and Ohio State. Why?
Well, here's another guy right there, Brandon. Here's another guy, Ron. I'll tell you what, a lot of people are probably scratching their head. Well, last year, Cleveland Farrell, people thought, whoa, really, with the fourth pick? Well, now you have another one.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, Cleveland's a great guy. I know him. I played in the preseason with him. I thought he would go lower than that. But, you know, Arnette, you know, he wasn't on anybody's, you know, first-round mock draft. But, hey, you know, obviously the Raiders and Mike Mayock have seen something that we haven't. So, you know, let's hope he's a great player.
Well, I did mention the other Ohio State cornerback in Gary and Connolly that they took 2 years ago. And then they take another one this year. Jonathan Abram, they got him last year, certainly. And if he's healthy, they could have a decent secondary next year that they're trying to put together. It wasn't good this year. A lot of injuries and that sort of stuff that happened with the Raiders in that secondary. But they're going to shore that up this year. My highlight so far, I got to tell you, this guy's my highlight so far of the draft, if you saw that, was when Henry Ruggs III had his Old Spice robe on and then put the LA Raiders hat on, Las Vegas Raiders hat on. But the Old Spice robe was that was prime time for this new whiteout.
He's definitely getting a check from that.
When you think about it too, Ohio State, we mentioned how powerful they might be the preseason #1 next year. But Joe Burrow played for Ohio State. Then you had Chase Young, Ohio State. Jeff Okudah, Ohio State. Now you have Damon Arnette, Ohio State. I mean, the team's getting pilfered.
Yeah, they do every year, though. But don't feel sorry for them. It's reload. As you mentioned, they're preseason #1.
You know what? I'm going to walk up here because this is the hat. This hat was introduced, worldwide premiere. I'm going to kind of show it to you right here. Look at this hat right here. Las Vegas Raiders 2020. This was debuted tonight. And after tonight, you can pick up merchandise, Las Vegas Raiders merchandise. Look how beautiful that thing is on. Hey, how nice is it that it says Las Vegas 2020? Great stuff. Go to all those, you know, go to Raider Image. Where else can you buy anywhere you can buy the merchandise? Las Vegas Raiders merchandise is now available. So it's pretty cool. So now they're talking about, you got Henry Ruggs III out of Alabama, Damon Arnette from Ohio State. Those are the two picks. Fans are loving this. You look at when you look at the situation the Raiders have done here. I think they did pretty well in those first 2 picks within the first round.
Yeah, well, they pulled a surprise with Arnette, that's for sure. I loved getting Ruggs. You know, they bypassed a couple of good corners in Diggs and Christian Fulton from LSU, both, you know, SEC guys, but they went with Arnette. So hopefully that will pan out. They must see something they really like.
You know, you're looking at some pictures of Raider fans here, and I'll tell you what, Las Vegas is embracing this franchise. Who would have guessed 5 years ago that we'd be talking about NFL football, Brandon, in Las Vegas, and not just any franchise, the iconic Las Vegas Raider franchise?
I would have never guessed growing up You know, all my friends, we love football, but nobody ever guessed that we would get a professional team, and everybody's embracing it. All my friends are Raiders fans now. You know, I'm a Broncos fan.
I'm just going to say, you're Denver Broncos.
Yeah.
There's a wee bit of a rivalry between those two teams, from what I've heard.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which will make it all the more fun for you.
Oh, absolutely. I'll be in the stadium for those games.
Yes, very good.
Well,
born and raised in Vegas, yes.
Pick is in for Jacksonville, coming in with that 20th pick. It's going to be interesting to see what happens right here. 20th pick, CBS has often kind of said that maybe that Yetur Gross-Matos out of Penn State might be the pick here. Not so sure. What do you think, Kenny? I mean, it could be a possibility right there. The guy, he's a big guy, looks good, fast, strong. He can be destructive to the offensive lineman. Gross-Matos, number 99. If we have that video, top 10 all-time Penn State for sacks and tackles for loss. Tough, active defensive lineman. By the way, he wears a size 18 shoe, by the way. I mean, this guy, I mean, he's the real deal. What, Kenny, do you like this guy?
Yeah, I do. I like him a lot. The problem is Chason's still out there. They do need defensive pieces, but they also have Jordan Love. They need a quarterback. Minshew was a rookie last year. He was the highest-rated rookie last year, but they still need a quarterback, and maybe that's the way they look. They could pick up Jordan Love right here. I'm looking at Clavon Chason from LSU. I think that would be the play.
All right, over to Ron now. Ron and Brandon, it's kind of interesting, this draft, how it's kind of played out.
It's been fun to see so far. It's been fairly predictable. I think compared to prior drafts, this one has been more predictable. But Jacksonville Jags, what do you think? In Florida down there, what they can have for this team, Brandon, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole issue with Yannick Ngakoue and the owner, and he wants out.
That's very vocal between those two.
Exactly. They got to go edge, I think, right here. You know, they got Josh Allen on one side, get Chason or the guy from Penn State on the other end, because I doubt that Yannick stays that long.
What's it mean to have a great edge rusher for you as a linebacker? Those edge rushers certainly take some pressure off the linebackers at times.
Absolutely, because when they run those stretch plays and that guy can set that edge and the running back can cut back up right up in the hole, and it makes the jobs easier for me. My Super Bowl year, we had DeMarcus Ware and Von Miller. It doesn't get any easier than that.
Yeah, Von Miller sort of done well, and Ware, as you said, certainly over their careers. But Jacksonville should be fun to see what they're able to do here, coming up with the 20th pick. Now we're already 20 picks in. First round, 32 picks. By the way, second and third rounds will be tomorrow, and then Saturday will be the remaining, let's see, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 would be 4 rounds on Saturday. So it's been a fun night so far, an interesting night, historic night in the way that they've done it, with Vegas being involved. We're coming to you from Vegas here, so it's the first time for us to jump into this the way that we have, Chris and Kenny, and just sort of enjoying the moment here.
Yeah, record-tying 14 picks for the Miami Dolphins. I can't remember who had the other 14. I mean, that's crazy. He had so many picks. The Miami Dolphins rebuilding, obviously.
Might have been the Minnesota Vikings when they got all the picks from the Cowboys for Herschel.
You know what? I think you're probably right there.
Walker,
so we're waiting for Jacksonville right now. Now, apparently the pick is in, so we're waiting to see who it is. We have a hunch it might be the guy from Penn State, Gross-Matos, but who knows? Commissioner will get that information shortly. Of course, this has been kind of interesting because it's been a virtual draft. We've had IT people waiting outside some of the general managers' houses just so there will be no hacking, no problems, and really everything has kind of gone smoothly here. You look at some of the guys who are left: McKinney, Jefferson, Chason, as you mentioned, Kenny, Murray's still out there. So there are some talented guys that are still out there available.
Hey, they need a corner as well, and another guy from the Pac-12, Jalen Johnson from Utah. I'm very high on him. Maybe somebody that they're looking at as well. It seems like teams like to stay territorial, though. With Jacksonville being on the East Coast, they may be able to scout those players easier. So I would be looking at maybe at Diggs at Alabama.
Yeah, I do like the Utah kid.
He's really good.
He's really talented, and we'll see what happens. It looks like the pick is in now, waiting for the commissioner to step forward. Hey, it's been interesting, Brandon, here it is. This is the pick for Jacksonville, as the commissioner is getting ready now to make the pick. So we'll kind of just keep it right here and see what the commissioner says. The selection, and he is... Wait, what happened to the fans behind him? The booing. There was no booing. No, here's Chason right here. So kind of what we thought, and now he goes to Jacksonville. Brandon, good pick?
Yeah, really good pick. Athletic edge rusher that's going to be able to get to the passer. This is great, man. And it's all about getting to the passer, affecting the quarterback. Rushing coverage, they go hand in hand. So this is going to be great.
They're now called edge rushers. That's sort of interesting. That change in the NFL. It's become so specialized. You used to just be a defensive lineman. It was Rosie Greer. It was Merlin Olsen. It was Deacon Jones, Lamar Lundy. It was okay. You had your defensive line. Didn't have different specialized games, but now you're an edge rusher.
Yeah.
That's a little bit different.
Yeah.
And that, you got to have speed more than the interior lineman on the defense. That requires speed.
Yeah, absolutely. And you need those guys to come in on third down and can maybe go in on second down on longer yardage. And you got your traditional defensive ends that stop the run, but then you got your guys like this that can get to the passer.
I do want to mention, Chris, here real quick.
Yeah.
It's now official that the next year's draft will be held in Cleveland. The year after that, 2022, will be here in Vegas, and then Kansas City the year after that for the next 3 years for the NFL draft, when it's done right, when it's done fun, and when it's done with big crowds, and not the virtual draft that we're seeing this year.
Well, and that's what they had to do. They had to make good. I mean, the draft obviously away from Las Vegas this year, so the NFL did the right thing. They came back, and you get it right after Cleveland. So, you know, here's an interesting thing. We talked about this Chason kid. He attended a camp with a buddy. That he was just going to go to a camp at LSU, attended this camp with a friend, got there. They liked him so much. He'd never played a down of varsity high school football. They liked him so much they offered him a scholarship, ended up being a top 50 prospect. That's a guy, I mean, this guy's unbelievable.
Great story, and a high character guy. 6'3", 254, runs a 4.68 40. So he has all the skills. His draft number was 16.5. The bettors bet it over, went up to 17.5. They won that bet. They cashed on it. But I'll tell you what, Jacksonville got them heck of an edge rusher here.
You know, Brandon, a lot of people said this guy, Chason, could be a boom or a bust guy.
Easily. First of all, he's 254.
254.
He looks about 220. He has to put on just a little more size, but if he's athletic enough and he's explosive enough, he'll be fine. But it could be a boom or bust. He can go either way. But if he puts in the work and puts in the time, he has the athletic ability, he'll be fine.
Eagles on the clock next year, going with the 21st pick, guys. What do you think? Where are you at with the Eagles? We do have a reporter standing by in a little bit. We'll go to Allie. Yeah,
let's do that. Philadelphia Eagles come in with the 21st pick in the draft. Now, they're in need of a safety, but they could go away from that. Allie Burberry is in Philadelphia now. Joins us now. Hi, Allie. Are you out there? Because I want to see kind of what the feeling is with the Philadelphia Eagles right now. What are you kind of hearing?
Well, I got to tell you, I've been on social media with a lot of these Eagles fans over the last few hours, and they want one thing. They don't care about their defense right now. They want a wide receiver. It's been well documented that the Eagles have struggled with that position. Obviously, quarterback Carson Wentz throwing for 4,000 yards last season, the first quarterback in NFL history to do so without a receiver who caught for 500 yards. So it was a long season watching these receivers drop passes, and now, Nelson Aguilar signing with you guys over there in the Las Vegas Raiders. Alshon Jeffrey will return from injury, but they're just looking for a little bit more consistency. And Deshaun Jackson actually in an Instagram Live talking to Shady McCoy, who's from Harrisburg, where I'm a reporter. The two of them were talking about what they were thinking for the draft, and it sounds like Deshaun thinks that Howie Roseman, the GM for the Eagles, is going to take a speedy wide receiver, and they've got their eyes on a couple of them. They obviously didn't trade up to get a guy like CeeDee Lamb, and it does hurt that he goes to division rival the Cowboys just a couple picks ago. I know a lot of Eagles fans furious with Howie Roseman over that decision not to trade up to get such a great receiver who kind of slipped later into the first round. But there's still guys they like on the board, still guys they're paying attention to. But Eagles fans, if they don't draft a wide receiver, are going to be storming Philadelphia when the coronavirus pandemic is behind us and the stay-at-home orders here in Pennsylvania are no longer a thing. They'll be marching down the streets of Philadelphia wanting answers from Howie Roseman.
Allie, let me ask you, you got T. Higgins still out there. You've got Denzel Mims still out there, and Justin Jefferson. Are you hearing some of those names associated with the Eagles?
Yeah, I think Justin Jefferson's obviously the first one. So much success there at LSU. A national championship doesn't hurt. You know, the Eagles want to be playing championship-level football. It's not too long ago they won their first-ever Super Bowl, and they feel like they have some of the best pieces for that. So they want a winner. But I think who we're hearing the most from is Jalen Reagor out of TCU. The Eagles have loved this guy. He's explosive. Deshaun Jackson really talked a lot about wanting someone who's speedier than he is. You know, he's getting up there in his 30s, and they want to add a dynamic player. So actually, I think Reagor might be the guy they're looking at more so than Justin Jefferson. But that's a great receiver, and either way, I think they're going to get a good guy as long as they go with the wide receiver.
All right, Allie, thank you very much. We're going to come back to you in just a moment when they make the pick for your reaction. But I want to send over here to Kenny. Kenny, when you think of like T. Higgins and Justin Jefferson, there's still some talent. And, and then Allie also mentioned the receiver from TCU. There's still some talent. And Mike Mayock had mentioned this, that this receiver class was really, really deep.
Oh, it's so deep. I love Denzel Mims. I love Justin Jefferson. I think that's who they go for. He's the highest rated player at that position right now. The other guy that I really like is Chase Claypool from Notre Dame.
All right, let's see what happens. The selection is in. The commissioner is ready to make that selection. And he is up there in his basement. That was pretty cool, too, the way he had that whole setup in his basement. I don't know if you saw that on social media, but he kind of gave us a tour of his basement, and it's really interesting. So the pick is in. They're getting ready. He's making the announcement right now. The commissioner, Roger Goodell, and the selection for the Philadelphia Eagles, as he reads his card, is there's the TCU wide receiver, and that's what Allie mentioned. So let's go back out to Allie. Allie, I want to ask you, you mentioned a lot of the Eagles fans, a lot of fans there, and even the Eagles were kind of getting an idea that this might be the guy they go with. What's your reaction, initial reaction?
Well, I think Eagles fans are going to be thrilled with this. It's a guy they've paid attention to a lot over the last couple weeks. He's fast, he's speedy, and he's going to learn from an Eagles favorite, an Eagles great, Deshaun Jackson. So Howie Roseman really hasn't been shy and kind of hinting at who he's looking at. And they really, really loved Jalen over the last couple weeks and, in the offseason interviews and things like that. So I think that's why you saw the Eagles wait for pick 21. Obviously, I think if CeeDee Lamb hadn't gone to the Cowboys, they might have tried to trade up a couple just to lock him down. But this is their guy, and this has been their guy for the last couple weeks. And like you guys were saying earlier, I was listening to you for a while. Very few things in this draft have been super surprising, and this isn't a surprising pick from the Eagles. I'm just glad they chose a wide receiver so that I don't have to hear about it on Twitter.
Allie Ruby, thank you very much. We appreciate it. Well, I'll talk to you a little bit later down the road, but I'll tell you what, they got the guy they wanted, it appears. So they got the guy from TCU, impressive guy, has athletic ability, skilled guy. Brandon, when you look at this guy, what do you think?
Man, I mean, just by watching his film, he's jumping off the charts. He's athletic. He can jump. He's a speedster. I mean, this guy is what you're looking for. I know people talk about the traditional receiver. They want 6 foot plus, but this guy's 5'10", but he can go.
And that is it. They took Carson Wentz a few years ago as the #1 pick in the draft before Jared Goff, and they are not disappointed with him as a quarterback. He's doing the job, had an injury, but he's still been pretty good at quarterback for them. Yeah. And Allie made a great point in that the wide receivers were who's who, like who are you going to today and tomorrow and next day, and they kept losing wide receivers. Raiders picked up one of them. Yeah. But now he's got somebody to throw to. It's tough for receivers to come out, though, as rookies and shine in this league, isn't it, in the NFL? I mean, that's probably the toughest position for you to excel at, maybe that in quarterback?
Yeah, I say quarterback and, maybe even corner. Corner's a tough position, but, I guess as a receiver, you're trying to read the defense. If it's cover 2, do you have to bend it to the seams, or if it's a middle safety, do you have to, go a seam route? So, it's kind of tough, but his athleticism, if they put him in correct positions, I think he'll be fine.
Okay, defensive backs. You mentioned quarterback. Safeties is what Minnesota needs, and they're next up, Chris, with the 22nd pick.
Yeah, exactly. Minnesota has 2 picks now in the next 4, 22 and 25. So it's going to be interesting to see what Minnesota does right here. I want to go back and ask Brandon while we're waiting for this pick to come in. Brandon, what was your draft day experience like? We talk about this virtual draft. What was your draft experience like, getting that call, and where were you?
Yeah, I was at my cousin's house, and I had my family and friends come over, and I was just waiting. I was waiting for my grandfather to get there. I was like, I hope he gets there before I get drafted, because every team, my agent would say, you go around from round 3 to 5, somewhere in that range. And I finally went at the beginning of round 5, I think about the 7th pick of the 5th round, 142. I think
somewhere around there, maybe. Memory's not well, but yes.
Yeah. So and actually somebody was calling me. I'm like, yo, stop calling my phone. I'm waiting for somebody to call me. Then I finally got the 904 number from Jacksonville. It was great.
Did you? What was the experience like from teams. Sometimes did owners and general managers feed you lines, so to speak, to make them think they were going to pick you when they weren't and they didn't? Could you trust all the information coming in, or did you have to decipher it a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, you just have to decipher it a little bit. You just never knew. You know, people saying, oh, you know, the Bears told me, oh, you probably be in the 3rd round, and that didn't happen. So you just have to roll with the punches and see what happened. And I went in the 5th round. It was good for me.
By Denver?
Oh, Jacksonville.
Jacksonville took you then, and then eventually to the Broncos.
Yeah,
okay,
absolutely.
That goes to show you. I mean, you know, a 5th-round pick, half a decade in the NFL. Hard work for Brandon Marshall. You know, I want to show you. Let's out here in Las Vegas with the NFL draft going on. This is the Eiffel Tower. Now, the entire world-famous Las Vegas Strip is shut down, but you can see the red, white, and blue. And just look at the tower. This is kind of recognizing the Raiders today, and over at the stadium, at Allegiant Stadium, they've also got that lit. So Las Vegas is all fired up for this draft. The stadium sunset is spectacular. Look at this right here. Now, this is Allegiant Stadium, folks. It's going to seat 65,000. It's going to be done at the end of July. This is where the Raiders and UNLV will play eventually when the season starts. But it's the home of the Raiders. And, Kenny, have you ever seen something so beautiful as this new $2 billion stadium?
Yeah, no, it is amazing, amazing sight. And to grow up here and live here all my life, that this valley, we've been wanting pro sports here. And then you get the T-Mobile, and you get the Vegas Golden Knights. And then all of a sudden we got this big, beautiful stadium in Allegiant Stadium. Can't wait. And it's going to prosper. You help UNLV tremendously because now the attendance is going to boost up and kids are going to want to come play college football.
It's going to be phenomenal. And you just saw a picture there of the high roller, the great big roller coaster that's here in Las Vegas. Let's go back to that if we can for just a moment, because what that has are all the different colors from the teams in the NFL. So kind of really, I mean, Vegas doing what it can despite the fact that it was canceled, kind of having some fun with this draft tonight. The Raiders picking up Henry Ruggs III and of course, Damon Arnett. So their 1st round is done, but they do have 3 picks in the 3rd round, which is going to be kind of interesting. 3 picks in the 3rd round. Who knows what's going to happen? Will they trade maybe? Will they keep those 3? It's going to be interesting to see what happens with those 3 picks.
Yeah, it's going to be. I'm just so excited they got Henry Ruggs. That's that's the guy I wanted to see the Raiders get. And they got him. That's going to be a lot of fun to watch here in Vegas.
A 4.2740. By the way, I did see an Old Spice commercial, by the way, on the coverage that we can see just out of the corner of our eye on the ESPN coverage. So Henry Ruggs III, understanding the marketing, comes out with that Old Spice robe on, that white robe, and then, coincidentally, I'm sure coincidentally, there's Old Spice commercials throughout the broadcast here tonight.
Well, now the Vikings, who knows, there you're seeing some of the Ruggs numbers right there. It's impressive. But for the Vikings now, who are up on the clock, we'll see what happens here. But Kristen Fulton, they could go that way. That could be, they could go that way there. They could also go with Trayvon Diggs. That's a possibility. They need a cornerback, wide receiver, and edge. That's kind of their most immediate needs. What do you see the Vikings doing right here with this pick?
Yeah, you know, the CBS guys, they came out with Kristen Fulton as the pick the Vikings would come with. So there's a good chance that could happen. I'm going to be rooting for the young man from Southern Illinois, Jeremy Chin.
Oh, he's your guy.
He's my guy. The size, the speed, the strength. This kid can do it all, and I'm hoping he gets in the 1st round. He's my first safety to go, and I think this would be a great spot for him, Minnesota Vikings.
They do need safety. Strong safety is and he would play that position very well. Safety is what they need. Brandon, what do you think with the Vikings?
Yeah, they do need defensive back and also edge. I'm not sure if Everson Griffin's going to come back or not. I know that's still up in the air, but, either one. They can go. Also, they traded Stephon Diggs away. I'm not sure they can go Brandon Ayuk. He's a good receiver from Arizona State. So, they can go a couple different ways, but we'll see.
We'll see if they go with Fulton. Of course, the pick is now in. Now you can see the commissioner, everybody that boos him, we mentioned this, Bud Light has donated $1 up to $500,000 to any fan that sends in their boos for the commissioner. And, of course, he's embracing that and having lots of fun, just like the commissioner of the NHL, Gary Bettman, has fun with as they boo him. Well, the pick is in for the Minnesota Vikings. The commissioner is now reading that card from his basement, and it is Justin Jefferson, the wide receiver for LSU. And did he drop over his numbers?
Yes,
there,
he did. No, he actually did not drop. 21.5. So it went over the total. There was money under 21.5. The bettors that are betting under that just missed this one by the hook.
Justin Jefferson, the wide receiver out of LSU. Very talented guy. You talk about this guy. And Brandon, a real talented receiver who kind of, I guess, went where everybody kind of thought he would go.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, like I said, they traded away Stephon Diggs, so, you know, they needed another target for Kirk Cousins and his guaranteed contract. So they got to get him some weapons, you know, and it's a tough division they're in with the Packers, who have a great defense, by the way. So I think it's a good pick.
And you mentioned, Kenny, that just missed that bet by the hook. So I want you to, no, I do want you to explain. We know what that means, certainly, by the half a point. But what that means, how close the people that pick these, the prognosticators and the people that set the lines on these are pretty darn good usually. And they hit this one right on, except for half a point.
And the guys betting into the line are pretty sharp too, because they're the ones that move those numbers into the closing line. And yeah, by a half. That's how amazing this game turns out. I'm really interested here. The Patriots are coming up.
Oh yeah.
Jordan Love's on the board. They need a quarterback.
Oh.
If they don't take Jordan Love, everybody else in the NFL will pass.
Well, they compare that Jennings to, or they compare Justin Jefferson to Greg Jennings. Fair comparison. It seems like LSU's is in his blood. Had 3 brothers. Now he's the third. I mean, 2 brothers. He's the third to play for the Tigers there. Real talented player. You look at what Jefferson, huge catch radius, excels at finding the holes. You know, quarterback's best friend, reliable, consistent route runner. He was ranked 32nd by CBS, but 6'1", 202. They got a guy they wanted.
Yeah, they did. You know, and it's an amazing triangle. You get Joe Brady, who comes in to run the pass game. You get Joe Burrow, after coming off an average year, and he was looking like a 6th-round draft pick. He wins the Heisman, and Justin Jefferson has an amazing year as best wide receiver in college football. He moved from the outside, the X position, to the slot, and he just prospered. So that those 3 really had an amazing 2019.
Okay, is this a trade we have happening here? The Chargers have moved up to that 23rd. Okay, Chargers with
now
the
with the
23rd
pick. So
Patriots.
The LA Chargers on the clock now. We'll see what happens here.
Linebacker.
Well, they don't need a quarterback. They don't need a quarterback.
They got that. So
I got them taking Kenneth Murray.
Kenneth Murray, a linebacker?
That would be a really good pick.
No, that would be.
So, yeah.
You like your linebackers. What do you like about Kenneth Murray?
He's athletic. Yeah. He's fast, man. I mean, I think he ran a 4.3 or low 4.4 as well. You know, the guy has instincts. You know, and that's what you need in the middle of defense. They let go of Thomas Davis, so, you know, they have Denzel Perryman, and who else? You know, they busted up the defense with a nice D tackle from Minnesota. I can't remember his name, but also Chris Harris, my ex-teammate. So they need a linebacker, especially to compete with the Chiefs, man, that great offense.
And they've had some great linebackers. Junior Seau, rest in peace. You think about the great linebacker and the great history of San Diego Chargers with linebackers, and this would be a very good fit, I think, for the Chargers going into this pick, which would be 23rd pick in the draft right now with the Chargers.
Yeah, and the Patriots get well, it's going to be interesting to see what happens now, because when you have the LA Chargers,
second round and third round picks in 2020. So the Patriots traded that pick. So the Chargers have taken it, and for 2 picks in the second and third round.
They still get Love in the second round.
Yeah, they could still get Love.
He could drop to the second.
He could drop.
Belichick's a genius. There's so much talent in this draft, and he's going to get 2 guys for the price of 1.
So the Chargers needs, according to a lot of people, the pick is in, by the way, the Chargers need an offensive tackle, cornerback, wide receiver, linebacker, running back. A lot of needs for the Chargers. They got their quarterback.
Yes.
But we'll see what happens now with the pick being in for the Chargers, who trade with New England. New England moves down. The Chargers move up into this 23rd spot. And we're kind of waiting to see what happens. But, Brandon, this is probably a tense moment. You see people by the phones and this virtual thing. How long were you sitting by your phone?
About 3 days.
Felt like 10.
Absolutely. I was sitting by my phone just watching it, you know, for a while. But once I got the call, it was great.
Now, do you watch the drafts? Are you like one of those draft nerds that watches everything?
I used to be look, when I was in high school, I used to just really sit there and watch the whole first round. I would know guys, and I would just study guys, and it's crazy. But, you know, mostly just the first round. That's what I would watch. But I'm a huge draft guy. Huge.
All right, now let's head out to Los Angeles. David Pingalore is out in Los Angeles as we wait for now the LA Chargers, who made a trade to move into that 23rd spot. Let's run out there and see. David, what are you kind of hearing out there from the new uniformed LA Chargers?
Well, you know, the LA Chargers, they are. Of course, we have two NFL teams here, but the Chargers moving up here. They obviously got their quarterback six overall with Justin Herbert. So Anthony Lynn and Tom Telesco, the general manager, they want to do some wheeling and dealing on the first night of the draft, and they certainly sent some shock waves through here in Southern California and, of course, throughout the NFL. And, you know, we do know that Bill Belichick certainly likes to wheel and deal himself, so why not do some wheeling and dealing tonight? So the Chargers can do a lot of things, but I know you guys have the pick right now to talk about.
Yeah, well, it just came in. Kenneth Murray, the inside linebacker, is the pick here. Interesting pick from Oklahoma. Side-to-side speed, tackling. He's an excellent athlete. Explosive to the ball, 6'3", 241. Let's head back out to David. So, David, now with Kenneth Murray, the inside linebacker here, as the pick here for the L.A. Chargers, what's your first impressions?
Well, obviously they went offense in the first earlier in the first round with Herbert, but defensively this team is already really good. You know, they got Derwin James from Florida State. He was hurt last year, but they got Joey Bosa as well. So you bring in another guy to just bolster up that defense, and Anthony Lynn, the head coach, is certainly going to like that because. Hey, it's a cliche, but defense does win championships. But a guy that can go side to side with the type of defensive scheme that they do run with the Chargers certainly will take them to just another level they want to go, because there were some that thought, you know, they were going to take a defensive player earlier on in this round, but they were able to trade a couple picks away to New England and pick up another defensive player. That certainly can only help things on that side of the ball, because one of the things that the Chargers certainly had a really tough time with, not only last year but the season before when they were in the playoffs, they have a really tough time stopping the run. And guys could just, you know, get those chunk, you know, runs, you know, yards after the catch. The running backs, they could really pick up a lot of yardage, like 6 to 10 yard type of runs, and they get out into the secondary. So picking up a player like this caliber certainly will help stop the run, because they really had their problem stopping the run over the last couple of years. They could score, you know, but stopping the run and stopping the other team from scoring was a big problem for them. So, you know, picking up a defensive player of this caliber in this part of the draft is a very good thing for the Chargers for sure.
Let me ask you, David, they pick up in the early in the draft. They got Justin Herbert, the quarterback. Now they have Kenneth Murray. Is Herbert the type of player that's going to excite this fan base, this Charger fan base? And let me ask you, in Los Angeles, what's kind of the feel now with the Chargers having been there for a few years? Are fans kind of maybe accepting this team? They got the new uniforms. They're trying to spice it up a little bit.
Well, I'll answer the first one first. They would have probably loved to have Tua. You know, obviously went to Miami. Is Herbert going to, is he going to create a buzz here? You know, they call it a Lakers town. You know, right now it's kind of a Rams town. So, you know, it'll be interesting. You know, you can see some of the, you know, Twitter world kind of reacting to it, and kind of maybe more of a negative light. They might have gone a different route earlier on in the round, but, you know, is there a big buzz? It's not like, I would say not really, because again, it's really the Rams town. Remember, they're playing in the Rams house because Stan Kroenke, he is going to own SoFi Stadium. He's the one that's building it. It's not obviously done yet, but it's expected to be done, and have a team, both teams playing in there in the fall. So they're the tenants. So is there a buzz around the Chargers the last couple of years? Your second part of the question. They played in you know, the LA Galaxy Stadium. I would say out of the 25,000 fans there, 24,000 fans were of the other team. So it's a Rams town, but they're certainly going to try to make a buzz. And, you know, the Rams, they don't pick until the second round. So we can kind of say it is their town right now because there's nothing else going on.
All right, David, I'll tell you what will cure all the harm down there will be just win, baby, as Al Davis once said. That's all you got to do.
That's all you got. Just win, right? And that cures everything.
Thank you very much. So once again, the Chargers pick up Kenneth Murray, this inside linebacker. Kenny, what are your numbers telling you about this guy? Did he slip? Is he kind of where he was supposed to be?
He slipped just a little bit. He was projected at 21.5. I love the size, speed, and athleticism. That package combined, the sideline to sideline speed. And he's a playmaker. He has a nose for the football. This is going to be a great pick. I'm kind of surprised the Patriots passed on him, but now they're thinking they got 2 picks in the second round. They may get Jordan Love in the second round.
Yeah, Brandon, what do you think? Inside linebacker, you were a linebacker. This guy, Kenneth Murray, impressive.
Very impressive. I'm extremely happy with this pick. I actually know this kid. We've talked a couple times on social media, so I may be a little biased, but but watching his tape, man, I mean, he proves it on the field, every Saturday. So, the guy's 6'2", 241 with that type of speed and athleticism. It was a no-brainer for the Chargers.
And we have New Orleans coming up next with the 24th pick. They also need a linebacker, okay? So the best one left at that point was taken. So I think they got to look at linebacker at some point if they can. But they're ready to go, and we're ready to go to New Orleans, in fact, to talk a little bit about what the Saints may do.
That's right. Let's head out to New Orleans here, where you have Brooke standing by. And Brooke, it's going to be interesting to see what happens right here with the New Orleans Saints. Brooke Kirchhofer, let's head out there and see. Brooke, what are you hearing now with the Saints?
Yeah, it's kind of a unique situation. The Saints have always been known to draft best available, not necessarily team needs. So when you look at it with Jordan Love available at quarterback right now, I don't think they expected that, as well as Patrick Queen at linebacker. And you've got Christian Fulton at cornerback too. So it's a very unique situation. As far as team needs goes, they are looking at linebacker. For quarterback, they made it very clear, actually April 1st, Sean Payton said that given Taysom Hill's unique role, they're wanting to have that third quarterback this year.
He's really a talent. I mean, if the Saints got this guy, I think they'd be pretty happy, wouldn't they?
I think so too. Were you talking about Jordan Love there? You did cut out on me.
The Saints have 5 picks in this year's draft. What's kind of the mood down in New Orleans right now with the Saints and how excited they are about the franchise and the direction, because they were right there, so close to getting into the Super Bowl a couple of times these last few years. Very talented team. What's the mood? What's the feel in New Orleans right now involving the Saints?
Well, I think with Drew Brees signing that new contract, a lot of Saints fans were waiting on that. It definitely strikes some excitement back into this program. A lot of veterans returning to this year's club. When you looked at free agency, the Saints were one of those teams who had just one of the deepest rosters heading into free agency, and they were able to sign a lot of those guys back and then be active in free agency. Saints GM Mickey Loomis said they weren't able to check off everything in free agency, so I think with this next pick, it's going to be necessarily a team need.
Brooke, hang right with us. We're going to come back to you when the commissioner makes the announcement. I want to ask Kenny White here, when you think of Patrick Queen, he might be a guy that the Saints could be looking at right here.
Yeah, I missed him. I had him on my board as the 10th best player in the draft, so he's really dropped, and I think this will be a great spot for him.
All right, let's see what happens. Who knows? Patrick Queen, the commissioner, making the pick right now with those fans down in his basement and the commissioner making the pick. And who is it going to be? Could it be Queen? Who is this? Who are they picking right here? It's going to be close. I'm trying to see who they picked. They didn't put the name up. They had the commissioner. They have a player who's pretty emotional right here.
Hysterical.
Do we know who this is, Brandon?
I have no idea who that is.
I mean, he
looks like a big guy. Looks like a big guy.
Yeah, they're from New Jersey. I don't know why they dumped out. They didn't give us the name.
He's like a D lineman or D end.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah, he's not a cornerback. Yeah, I'm guessing.
Oh, you know who it is? Ruiz. You talked about Cesar Ruiz. You had talked about this guy a long time ago, and here he is now going to the Saints.
Yeah, it's a good pick, as I mentioned. Very versatile. He's a center, but can play guard. He'll be a starter in the NFL from day one. Cesar Ruiz. We know he's from New Jersey now, Camden, New Jersey, and this was right around where he was supposed to go, about 24 and a half.
Let's go back out to New Orleans, where Brooke is standing by. Brooke, the commissioner makes the announcement. Cesar Ruiz, what's your impression of this pick?
Not a lot of people talked about the Saints drafting an interior lineman. One reporter that did have that kind of on their checklist when it came to what the Saints were looking for was Diana Rossini, and she came out with that yesterday, and it came to be true. I think they add depth at this position. I'm not necessarily sure the Saints draft this year affects them in 2020. I think this is more looking at the years to come. When you look at some of the guys on the roster as far as injuries, there was a few injuries to some of the offensive linemen last year, and some of them are getting to the end of their career. So I think this was a good move for years to come within this Saints program.
Well, Brooke, we thank you very much for staying up with us tonight, and have a good night, and thank you. And once again, good luck to the New Orleans Saints and Drew Brees as the season gets ready to roll here in a few months. Thank you. And the Minnesota Vikings back on the clock. You know, we mentioned they had those 2 picks in 4. Cesar Ruiz, 6'2", 307, Michigan guy, Kenny, good stock, kind of maybe, what were his numbers at this point?
Yeah, he was supposed to go around about 28.5, 29.5 in that range. So definitely was going to be a late first-round draft pick. I'm glad he went as high as he did because, like I said, center is such an important position. I mean, those guys really, the captain of the line. But again, he can play guard. He will start right away, I believe, for the Saints. You know, it's interesting, Ron. You know, you talked about it earlier, how these guys that here in Vegas that work the numbers are so close every time. I mean, Brandon knows you grew up here, Ron, myself. I mean, it's amazing how these guys get the numbers down.
Nailed this one again, certainly with a center, by the way, not with a quarterback or one of the top wide receivers, but with that sense. Now we got Minnesota Vikings. They have needs in the secondary, certainly is what the Vikings are looking at here. Your thoughts, Brandon, on Minnesota, where they're going?
Yeah, they took Justin Jefferson with the first round pick, so I'm expecting defensive back, maybe even O-line, but I'll say defensive back here to shore that up. You know, make sure they can go further in the playoffs than they did this year.
Yeah, they got the wideout taken care of in that sense with this draft, at least, with a great one in Jefferson. But now secondary, who's out there in the secondary left, Kenny?
Well,
that you would look at?
You know what? I also like Diggs and Fulton.
Yeah,
I mean,
both guys. Yeah,
both guys are still out there. Yeah, I mean, Fulton and Diggs, 2 guys. In fact, Kenny, what are the odds right now that one of those 2 guys go right here?
Yeah, it's probably it's probably a big favorite because they do need a corner. So yeah, $2 favorite to get one of those 2 guys.
Possible trade alert now in the NFL draft.
Forget everything we said about the Vikings.
Vikings trade to the 49ers, trade to the 49ers, so the Vikings move out of that spot. So right now we'll forget Diggs and Fulton, at least for the time being.
And you got some thoughts. You got some thoughts here on this, Brandon.
Don't forget Diggs and Fulton because actually when the 49ers played the Vikings in the playoffs, I'm not sure if guys remember, they actually had to bench their starting corner for the backup corner. So I think they're going to get a cornerback right here to shore up that secondary alongside of Richard Sherman.
The Niners defense is already a rock star defense. Okay, they've already got a great defense. Right. Oh no, they need better quarterbacks now. Okay, wait a second. As a guy that watches the NFC West real closely with the Rams, who by the way have no picks in the first round, I'm seeing the Niners just get stronger and stronger all the time, and I'm rolling my eyes, going, uh-oh, here they go again with another one.
Ron might actually be worried that the Chargers might overtake the Rams there in L.A.
Well, here's what I like about the Chargers. No, here's what I do like, Chris, about what the Chargers have done is that they've made the AFC West stronger right now, right here, right now. True. Because the AFC West has, Kansas City Chiefs, and then the other 3 teams that are sort of lumped together there with the Raiders and Denver. And now separating themselves from that pack might be San Diego. I say San Diego, sorry. The LA Chargers. The LA Chargers and what they're doing.
The over was 1.5 that somebody would say.
Yeah. San Diego.
Well, you know, we mentioned, so San Francisco now has this 25th pick. They trade with Minnesota the 31st pick. So that's kind of interesting. Brandon, like what you mentioned there, Fulton or Diggs right here for this pick.
Absolutely.
Fulton or Diggs, which guy would be favored right here?
It's probably Fulton on the numbers. He was supposed to go 24.5. So we're right there. This is the 25th pick. So if you bet him under, you lost. You would miss him by a half again.
All right, let's head out now to San Francisco. Jason Dumas is there. Hey, Jason, what do you think? San Francisco makes the trade with Minnesota. They're now on the clock. What's your gut feeling with the 49ers? What are they going to do right now?
Well, Chris, they need someone in the secondary to help out right now. They have their top 4 cornerbacks aren't under contract, as we saw. And in that Super Bowl, we saw them just get torched in the secondary in that second half. And right now they view themselves as a team that is in their Super Bowl window, and they know their biggest competition is the team that just beat them. And what does that team have? They have Patrick Mahomes, and they have really fast wide receivers. So I'm expecting them to go, if not cornerback, safety. I know the kid from Alabama is still available right now, and he is the top safety in the draft. So I wouldn't be surprised to see them go that route. They got their defensive lineman early in the draft to replace DeForest Buckner, the kid out of South Carolina, Javon Kinlaw. So I still expect them to address that defense. If not, maybe see them go wide receiver. The kid out of Arizona State is still there.
Jason, let me jump in here right now. It looks like, Hey, Jason, let me jump in here. Brandon Ayuk was just picked by the San Francisco 49ers from McQueen High School up north in Reno. So he's the receiver. They go out and get a guy who can catch the ball. So you mentioned that, 5'11 and a half, 205 pounds. Brandon Ayuk, the receiver for the San Francisco 49ers. Arizona State Sun Devil, talented guy, explosive, four-down player, dominates. In the coverage, they're always a threat to take it to the house right. He's got. You look at this guy's speed. We mentioned 6 foot 205. Let me ask you, Kenny, before we go back out to Jason. What do you think of this guy?
Very talented. Yeah, I was very high on him, and he's going to get the receivers to go over the total. The total of receivers was 5.5. Ayuk did not have an over betting number for his draft position because most people felt he would be in the 36 to 40 range.
All right, so let's go back out to Jason now. So Jason, the commissioner makes the announcement, makes the pick. Brandon Ayuk from McQueen High School in Reno, Arizona State guy. What do you think of the pick?
So as a local guy for you, Chris, we'll have to chat about him later. But I love the pick for the 49ers. The past couple of years, they've drafted wide receivers, but they haven't seen great results. Deebo Samuel, Pettis, two guys who have underwhelmed the 49ers coaching staff in the past few years. So hopefully this guy can really come in and solidify the 49ers edge receiving core. When you watch this 49ers offense, you know, it's a ground and pound game, and they don't really air it out. Even in the playoffs, they didn't really trust Jimmy G to throw the ball all that much. Now, some people will say, hey, you didn't need him to. When your running backs are picking up 4, 5, 6 yards per carry, just keep doing what has worked. But Jimmy G, for his progression, he's going to need more weapons on the outside. He's under a lot of pressure. A lot of people in this fan base here in San Francisco were looking at him a little side-eyed after that postseason performance. You know, didn't really throw the ball all that much, missed crucial throws in that Super Bowl, like the one to Emmanuel Sanders late that could have sealed that Super Bowl for them. So it's going to be a big year for Jimmy G. And what do you do to help him have a big year? You get a wide receiver who is very, very highly regarded out of Arizona State. And, you know, people were saying he could have gone higher than he went. He was higher up than this in some draft boards. Some people liked him better than some of the big names you hear, like CeeDee Lamb, Jefferson out of LSU. So this is a very interesting pick. Hopefully this pick will have a little more luck than they've had in the past when they've drafted wide receivers, because they have had a lot of desire left out on the field when it came to that wide receiver position. It's the reason why they went out and traded for Sanders last year during the season and scooped him up for Denver. So going forward this year, it'll be another weapon for Jimmy Garoppolo, and hopefully he can capitalize it. Hopefully this guy comes through for the 49ers, because this is a big year for Jimmy G. Even though he got to that Super Bowl, like I said, very, very tough critics out here in the Bay Area, because this fan base saw a quarterback who left points on the field and left a lot to be desired when that Super Bowl was just right within reach. He didn't even have to do all that much. That's what they're saying. He didn't have to do much, and he couldn't get it done. And the 49ers blew that lead because their quarterback couldn't keep up with Patrick Mahomes. Now, I know, Chris, that's a tall order, and, you know, he has a lot to prove. But, hey, that's just the reality of the situation. Jimmy G is not sealed and locked in here, especially from the fan base point of view. And even for his contract, he has a contract where he can easily be replaced, and he wouldn't leave much dead money on the books for the 49ers. So big year for him, and I'm sure he's happy he has another weapon.
Jason, let me ask you before we let you go tonight. They had the 2 picks in the first round. Do you feel the Niners did what they needed to do?
Well, I really like the pick out of South Carolina, Kinlaw, especially after losing DeForest Buckner. When you have such a stout and such an elite defensive line, which essentially is what got you to the Super Bowl, when you lose one of those main players, you don't want to drop off that much. Now, I'm not going to say Kinlaw is going to be DeForest Buckner next year, but this is a very highly regarded player. He's actually was on a small list of one of the guys I thought the 49ers would draft at 13. They end up trading back, picking him up at 14. So I love that pick. I also love the pick out of Arizona State as well. There probably are some more talented wide receivers that I liked heading into the draft, but they weren't available, and they got their wide receiver. So a wide receiver and a defensive tackle in the first round. That's just what the doctor orders. I assume they'll look for secondary help in the third round, in the third round, because they don't have a second-round pick, maybe a safety or a cornerback to shore up that secondary, because right now they don't have many secondaries locked up under contract, and their top secondary guy, Richard Sherman, is on the back end of his career and getting slower by the year. So I'm assuming they'll do that in the third round. But first round grade, I'd give them a B. They did what they had to do, and now you just got to wait and see if these picks kind of live up to where they were selected. But we can't really judge that until this time next year.
Jason, you've been watching the draft like all of us. You've been to all those Raider games. I sat with you many times in the press box. Are the fans there in Oakland have they forgotten the Raiders? They've moved on?
No, they haven't. It's funny you asked me that, Chris. It's about split. You have some people who are like good riddance, and I can understand that logic, because if you're a fan who lives here in the Bay Area and you root your heart out for an organization and they up and leave, you can take offense to that. So you have a lot of those fans, but then you have other fans who are like, well, what else am I going to do? I've been rooting for a team for 25, 30 years. I'm not just going to start rooting for someone else. So, hey, even though they left my neighborhood, I'm still going to root for them. You have a lot of Oakland people and Bay Area people who have gone out and got tickets over in Vegas. It's a really easy flight. I've flown out to Vegas from here in the Bay Area several times in the last 2 years. Quick and easy flight. So you're going to see a lot of Bay Area folks around the Vegas Strip and at Alliance Stadium when we start playing football again. And we'll still be reporting on the Raiders over here. Obviously, it won't be as extensively because they'll be in your guys' backyard, but we have enough fans here in this market who still care about that silver and black. And I like their picks today as well. They got some speed. So Al Davis is up in heaven smiling right now at that first pick they took.
Certainly is, Jason. We appreciate it. Thank you very much. Have a good night, and we'll see you down the road. In fact, we'll see you here in Las Vegas. Hey, now it's the Packers on the clock, and it's getting close to nitty-gritty for them. So Packers, then Seattle. Packers right here, Kenny. What do you think they're going to do? They're getting close to making this pick right here.
Yeah, good question. I didn't even have the Packers at that spot.
Well, no, they don't. That's Miami. That's a trade for Miami. So they took Miami's third first-round pick.
Yeah, I was going to say.
The Packers, I haven't seen what they traded for, but it's now the Packers have jumped into that Miami spot at 25.
Packers need a wide receiver or tight end. That's their needs, offensive line. So I think they'll be looking at the offensive side of the football.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see what happens. Brandon, what's your impression here? You got now the Packers on the clock.
Yeah, I think opposite side of the football as well. Tight end. There's a great guy out of Notre Dame. Actually, the Washington.
Cole Kmet.
Yes.
Yeah.
Actually, the Washington kid is a little more athletic than Cole. You can go either way. Also, receiver, if there's a receiver that's available. So, we'll see.
And we haven't seen a tight end taken yet.
Yeah, not yet. I think
this might be a good spot. They've had good tight ends over the years, that Packer team, certainly. So they're used to that.
All right. So it looks like let's run back over here because it looks like the pick is in. The commissioner's going to read this. The Green Bay Packers making the pick, a trade with Miami, who had those 14 picks, and the Green Bay Packers getting set to make that pick. Their selection is in, and the commissioner is about to announce that right now. And this is interesting, Green Bay, you see all those
Wow.
fans? Jordan Love.
There you go.
The guy from Utah State.
Wait a second.
To Green Bay.
Wow.
So he can learn under Aaron Rodgers. That's
Yeah,
interesting.
don't they have a quarterback? Yeah. Wait, they do, I think, in Green
They do have a quarterback.
So Aaron Rodgers, this guy, he's going to learn a lot from Aaron Rodgers. Jordan Love, talented player. Many said he's kind of like had that Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes kind of. He had a great 2018. 2019, he kind of fell off a little bit with the Aggies at Utah State. But he can make the deep throws, has a great touch on the ball, very athletic player. Kenny, where was Jordan Love projected to go? And what do you think about this pick to Green Bay? It's good because he can learn now. He's going to sit wherever he goes.
That's exactly what I was going to say. He was projected at 19 and a half, and the money was coming on the over. The looks of him just showed he wasn't going to be a top 20 pick. But I agree with you here. Learning under Aaron Rodgers, this is amazing for Jordan Love. He's going to have no pressure on him. He's going to get to learn from a Hall of Fame quarterback. And 2 or 3 years from now, he'll be ready to step in.
Well, it looks like the Green Bay was a little worried. This is the guy they wanted because they traded up to get him. They traded with Miami. Let's head out to Lily. She is in Green Bay right now, up there with the folks. They made the trick. They got the quarterback, Jordan Love, out of Utah State. Lily, what do you think about the pick here?
I know a lot of Packers fans wanted to see wide receiver, but obviously the Packers traded up to get who they believe could hopefully be Aaron Rodgers' successor at quarterback. Now, General Manager Brian Gutekunst was asked if he had talks in the offseason with Rodgers about potentially selecting a quarterback. He said they've talked in the offseason, but they have not talked about drafting a quarterback, but said if anyone knows what it is like to potentially draft your successor, it would be a guy like Rodgers, considering he was drafted when Brett Favre was still in town. I think it's kind of shocking to see that they would get a quarterback, but not actually shocking because Gutekunst said during the combine they would have no problem selecting the quarterback in the draft if they loved a guy. So you would have to assume they love Jordan Love if they're trading up 4 spots with Miami to get him. I know the Packers faithful really wanting a wide receiver, but you have to remember Jordy Nelson, Devontae Adams, Greg Jennings, those guys drafted on day 2. So there could be a lot of value for the Packers at the wide receiver position still to come tomorrow. But right now, Packers going with their hopefully Aaron Rodgers successor in Jordan Love.
How's the excitement up there in Green Bay for the Packers with this pandemic? Everybody's kind of holed up. What's Green Bay like up there?
Well, Green Bay's still a football country, football town. They love their Green Bay Packers. So I think everyone was just really eager to see who Green Bay would select, kind of hoping that Gutekunst would trade up, which he obviously did. But I think Packers faithful kind of disappointed to see that the Vikings chose a guy that we kind of heard here, Justin Jefferson from LSU, the wide receiver that the Packers really had an eye on. And, of course, they got him at number 22. So he'll still be in the NFC North just playing with Kirk Cousins wearing some royal purple instead of green and gold. But, yeah, the excitement's still going on and kind of wondering, I'm going to check the Twitter to see what Packers faithful are thinking right now with Jordan Love as a selection.
All right. Well, Lily, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Good luck to the Green Bay Packers and good luck to you. Thank you very much for joining us here tonight. All right, so Lily there with the Green Bay Packers. And Kenny, it's kind of interesting. You know, she talked about a wide receiver that kind of maybe going that way, but a guy that's available when it's a Jordan Love kind of type player, you got to pick him up.
Yeah, there's plenty of wide receivers. They'll get a receiver in the second round, and they may get Cole Kmet, the tight end from Notre Dame, in the second round. But you're right. It's hard to pass on a Jordan Love. This is a perfect situation for this young man.
Seattle is now on the clock. So we'll see what happens with Seattle. Hey, Brandon, let me ask you, what do you think Seattle needs to do here now as we're kind of getting down to the nitty-gritty here toward the end of this first round?
Well, first of all, I do not like that last pick.
They traded up to get it.
They traded up for that. I mean, because the Packers are trying to win the Super Bowl, right? Aaron Rodgers is not on the decline, and you pick a quarterback with your first-round pick. I don't get it. But, I mean, as far as the Seattle Seahawks goes, I think they need a cornerback.
They do.
They need a cornerback.
Trey Flowers is there, but they got to have somebody to complement him.
Absolutely. Somebody, they got Diggs, they can pick up. But they have a great front seven. Bobby Wagner, they got D lineman. Hopefully they bring, Clowney back. So I think they should go corner.
Well, Seattle is now on the clock with the 27th pick. So let's go up to Adam Bjarnson, who is standing by with our sister affiliate up there. Hey, Adam, what do you see now, the Seahawks? What are their needs with this 27th pick in that first round?
Well, Chris, I see this guy behind me. That is their number one priority, finding protection to keep him upright the entire time. Look, the Seahawks, they've got 8 picks overall. There's a guy on the board right now, Xavier McKinney, who is a safety. They haven't had a safety like this since Earl Thomas. And, of course, they got a couple extra compensatory picks because of Thomas's exit. But yeah, and you guys said it. They need a cornerback. Brandon said it. They need a corner. They need a pass rusher, and they need some offensive linemen. Pete Carroll's doing some crazy things on Twitter. I don't know if you guys have seen this, but he's tweeting out clues on who they would possibly be drafting. He showed a clip earlier today from the movie 1917. Everyone thinks and knows what John Schneider, the GM for the Seahawks, is all about. He's about collecting more picks after the first round. So if he's able to find a way, and I know there's just 2.5 minutes left here on the clock, if they find a way to trade back, he will find more value in those guys later on. But, hey, Xavier McKinney, this guy is the most talented safety in the entire draft, and he's still on the board right now. I would not be shocked if they do that. Look, there's still no Jadeveon Clowney, right? He's not in the mix. Everson Griffin from Minnesota has been linked to possibly come if the Seahawks can't re-sign Clowney. Look, their prized free agent signing has been Benson Mayowa from the Raiders, who, of course, did play for the Seahawks before. He had 7 sacks last year. That was more than the entire Seahawks team. They were second in the entire league last year, second from last in total sacks. So I don't know. I'm still just a little screwy right now with that Raiders pick at number 19. I know Brandon Marshall can relate because they take Damon Arnett. I'd rather have David Arquette instead of this young man right here.
Well, it's going to be interesting. You mentioned, Adam, that with this McKinney kid, in practice he went against Tua. In a game he goes against Burrow. So this guy has been in the biggest wars in college football.
Hey, I've watched a lot of Alabama football, and this guy is legit. He brings it. So if he's right there right now, I know they love their hard hitting. They want to get back to those Legion of Boom days that they had with Earl Thomas and, of course, Richard Sherman roaming that backfield as well. So they have not had a lot of success, you guys, in recent years in their number 1 overall or their first-round picks. So if they do it here, let's find out, because I know the pick is in. Let's send it back to you guys.
Well, thank you very much, Adam. We'll get back to you in just a moment. When you think of, like, Adam's talking about McKinney, this guy is absolutely awesome. Hey, and by the way, have any of you guys seen the big tattoo on his back?
No.
That might be the best. Have you seen it?
No, I have not.
That tattoo, not that I go checking guys' backs, but it's on social media.
Okay.
And you got to check out that tattoo. It is absolutely awesome. So we're waiting now for the 27th pick. We'll go back to Adam in just a moment. But what do you kind of see maybe with the Seahawks right now?
Well, you know what? Russell Wilson's been running around for his life the last couple of years. He needs somebody to protect him. I like Ezra Cleveland from Boise State, an offensive tackle.
What do you think, Brandon?
I'm going Diggs. I'm going cornerback. I think they need some defensive back help, or the safety from Alabama, But whatever, I would go secondary.
McKinney would be a bargain, I think, at this point for them to be able to get him with the 27th pick in the first round.
100%.
Would be, and they need that, like I said, with Trey Flowers. Yeah. They need somebody to complement him. They could have two. They could have 2 real good shutdown cornerbacks.
Yeah.
If they got the right guy there that could play both positions and safety if they need to, perhaps strong safety. He doesn't look big enough for a strong safety, but perhaps safety on that. But where do you see McKinney in here?
24.5 was the number where he was supposed to go.
He's a bargain at 27.
Yeah, he is a bargain right now.
Even Fulton. But I think McKinney could play strong safety because now it's almost like a positionless safety nowadays. Just from being in Denver, how they had a smaller guy playing strong safety. It just depends. If it's a nickel safety playing in the linebacker role, that's different. But he's about 200 pounds, so I think he'd be all right.
Okay.
All right, he calls himself the most versatile player in the entire draft. McKinney got the confidence. Alabama, the commissioner is now getting ready to make this pick. We'll run back out to Adam as soon as he makes his pick. But the commissioner now standing in his basement, and they're going to raise his $500,000 because everybody is booing the commissioner. We mentioned the money raised here. So the Seattle Seahawks now with that pick, and the commissioner makes the pick. This is number 27, pick number 27 for the Seattle Seahawks.
Oh, wow.
And it's Jordan Brooks. So Jordan Brooks, the inside linebacker from Texas Tech. Let's run back out to Adam out there. Adam, what do you think of this pick now? Jordan Brooks, Texas Tech, a linebacker. 367 tackles, 7th in school history there. What's your first impressions of this guy, Brooks?
guy Brooks?
Well, they can always use a guy, Chris. They can use a guy that can be a tackling machine. Obviously, this guy is just that. I was just looking at all of our player stats that they send out, through all of Nexstar, and we don't have Jordan Brooks on there. I'm a draft junkie. I've seen his name pop up. I don't know enough about him as we're watching some video of him now over on one of the mothership networks, but he looks the part. He looks like someone that Seattle could certainly use. And look, they pride themselves in defense first in Seattle. I love the fact that someone had called out to take Ezra Cleveland from Boise State. That would have been a great choice as well. Got to keep those guys upright. But John Schneider did say a couple days ago in his one and only availability pre-draft that they got the three guys that they wanted in free agency at the offensive tackle or along the offensive line. So maybe that wasn't as big of a need as we all initially thought, but defense can certainly always be a priority, and it looks like Jordan Brooks is that guy.
And Bjornsson, thank you very much for joining us here tonight on the program. Lots of fun. Good luck to the Seattle Seahawks, and we'll talk to you down the road. Good luck. Thank you. All right, so what do you think now here, Kenny, when you think of this guy here? Adam talked about it. This guy was kind of came out of nowhere.
Yeah, he did. You know what? This is a really good pick. Pete Carroll, I've said for years, one of the best talent evaluators in all of the NFL. He brings in guys, they stay. He doesn't bring in guys and they release them. So he knows what he's looking at. Jordan Brooks, middle linebacker, 6'1", 245, runs a 4.5 4.40. He's got sideline to sideline.
Body fat.
It just depends. But I think this is it's a good pick. They got KJ Wright, Bobby Wagner, and now this guy from Texas Tech. But they lost Michael Kendricks. I'm not sure what's going to happen with him in this whole situation, legal situation. But they want to shore up the defense. They want to get back to. They have a good defense already, but they want to stay consistent on the defense side of the ball. So I understand.
Now we have the Baltimore Ravens on the clock coming up here. Yeah. They need help with the linebacker. They would have liked to have this linebacker. They need help in the defense, certainly. Yeah. Quarterback, linebacker, defensive line, certainly. I think that's where the Ravens are looking at this point, wouldn't you say?
Well, they got Calais Campbell and Derek Wolfe in free agency. I see them going Patrick McQueen right now. They had a stud linebacker for about 4 years in C.J. Mosley, so they didn't have that last year. I see them going sideline to sideline linebacker Patrick McQueen from LSU.
We forgot about Patrick Queen of it. Yeah, but he is still there.
Yeah, he's still there. Yeah.
In fact, what was he projected? Queen
24.5. And I thought that the Ravens could have been also looking at that last draft pick. So they were looking at one of the two guys, and I'm going to go with you guys. I agree. Patrick McQueen goes to the Ravens.
All right, we'll see what happens here with Patrick. Of course, we're counting down the picks. There's only 5 left as we move through this first round. We're at number 28 now, the Baltimore Ravens. What are the Ravens going to do? It's going to be interesting. They may go linebacker here, perhaps. What do you think?
Well, they need a linebacker, offensive line help. They could go for a wide receiver as well, but they know there are so many. They'll get a wide receiver in the second round. So I'm going to go back to Ezra Cleveland at Boise or Patrick McQueen. I think it's going to be McQueen. And as I said, Pete Carroll's one of the best evaluators. John Harbaugh, he gets the most out of his talent more than any other NFL coach.
Speaking of Harbaugh, let's go back out to Baltimore. Allie is standing by for us once again. And Allie, what do you think now? The Ravens right here, getting ready to pick here late in the first round. What's kind of your impression? What might Baltimore do and need at this pick?
Well, I got to tell you, I got a little nervous when the Seahawks just took an inside linebacker, but I think that's where the Ravens are most focused. They spent a lot of time this offseason shoring up that defense. You guys mentioned it, Calais Campbell, as well as Derek Wolfe, giving them some insurance there on the defense. They were a top 5 defense last season, but that divisional round game against the Titans where they lost and Derrick Henry really just ran all over everyone really showed them that they might have a hole that they want to adjust and learn how to address. And I loved it. Calais Campbell just a little while ago tweeted at Joe Burrow and said he looks forward to being properly acquainted with the Bengals' first overall pick. So this defense plays with a lot of swagger, and I think bringing in someone like Patrick Queen might make a lot of sense for the Ravens. I think what's most interesting is this is General Manager Eric DeCosta's second draft. In the first round of his first draft last year, he drafted Hollywood Brown, and they tend to subscribe to best available player. They don't live and die by wanting to move up and get a certain position. They kind of just look at where the board is at and pick someone based on those needs. So it'll be interesting to see. This pick is so late. So many kind of weird things have happened here at the end, but I do think Patrick Queen would fit in well for the Ravens.
Patrick Queen, an interesting pick there if they'd go that way. What's kind of the sense, Allie, back there where you cover the Eagles and the Ravens there? What's kind of the sense with this whole virtual draft? What are you hearing from all the football fans back east?
I think they're just clamoring for any sports. I think we all are. We actually cover almost 4 teams because we also get a lot of Steelers fans in central Pennsylvania where my station is based. And these are really passionate fan bases. They're not afraid to speak their mind. And so many of them are so desperate to have football this season that I think everyone was thrilled that the draft was still going to happen. And so far, I think they're pretty much shocked it's been as seamless as it has been. People are laughing at Roger Goodell down in his basement. So I think people are enjoying it, and as long as we can play this 2020 NFL season in some fashion, I think the people in Philly, Baltimore, as well as Pittsburgh are all going to be pretty happy.
Allie, stay right with us. The pick is in. We want to come back to you and get your reaction when the commissioner makes the announcement. But you mentioned Patrick Queen here. Guy's still available. The LSU linebacker. Looks like they're going to get ready to make this, but that's kind of surprising, maybe, isn't it?
Yeah, you know what? May have been the size, 6'1", 227. I mean, he needs to put on a little bit of weight, but he's got great speed, great numbers. He was actually my #1 rated inside linebacker.
All right, so we're going to see what happens here. The pick is in. We know that. Brandon, it's kind of getting down to nitty-gritty here. Do you think they might go with this kid?
I think so. I watched him in the college football playoffs. This guy can fly. He goes side to sideline. It's crazy. He's athletic. He's one of my favorite guys watching, to be honest with you. So, the Ravens have traditionally a smash mouth defense, great linebacker play. I think they'll go with him right here. So
you think, in the gaining weight thing, okay, does he need to put on some pounds, do you think? Can he play in the NFL at 220s as a linebacker?
You know what? In 2020, you can. It just depends on how stout he is, how strong he is. His lower body strength, his core strength. How is he in that area? So if he's not that strong as far as taking on blocks in the NFL, because the guards and centers and tackles are a lot stronger, bigger.
And they're 360.
Level. Absolutely.
All right. So the commissioner is now at the. I was almost said podium.
Yeah.
He's at the basement mic there, getting ready to make this pick. Yeah. So the Baltimore Ravens, Patrick Queen. We kind of thought that might be the pick. So Patrick Queen, the inside linebacker. Boy, this guy's really sharp, has that sudden movement to the ball, smooth in his coverage drops. Let's go back out to Allie now. Allie, you mentioned Patrick Queen might be the person they go with. Well, they go out and get him.
Yeah, they wanted a linebacker in general, and Patrick Queen was someone who was high on a lot of draft boards. So I think when you think about them subscribing to that best available player model, as well as, needing some help on the linebacker position, this one just makes a whole lot of sense. So, we just saw Calais Campbell on the ABC broadcast here in my living room, and he's going to be a great mentor for any young guy that comes into this defense, really just showing them the way, Walter Payton Man of the Year. So, I mean, this is a guy who knows how to lead a defense, and I think Patrick Queen, coming off a national championship, is going to fit in real well to this team that the Ravens is building that's hoping to contend for a Super Bowl, and they were, one of the best available just a short while ago. If you're seeing a tail, it's because my intern, my cat, has decided she would like to join the NFL draft, so I apologize for that.
That's great, Allie. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time tonight. Have fun with the Eagles and the Ravens this season, and there's that cat tail. We appreciate that. Once again, Patrick Queen going to the Baltimore Ravens. We mentioned he's just 20 years old, a lot of talent, a lot of speed. He was the defensive MVP of that national championship game, Kenny. So this guy, his dad played at LSU. He's an LSU guy, quiet, humble, but he just gets the job done.
Yeah, well, the speed, 4.5 speed. He's got great numbers, and he showed his cover ability too. He's able to cover tight ends and running backs out of the backfield.
All right, so Tennessee is up next. Patrick Queen, Brennan, you mentioned this guy, round 1 pick with the 28th. Good pick right there for him.
Oh, I think great pick. He's explosive. He's fast. He diagnoses the play extremely fast, and he gets there extremely fast. So I think he's going to fit in perfectly with the Ravens defense.
And next up, Tennessee is on the clock right now. The Titans are up. I mean, they surprised everybody in the NFL. Of course, Ryan Tannehill, Derrick Henry is just a beast at running back. They did lose an the offensive lineman, Jack Conklin. So are they looking offensive line, do you think, to be? Now, if they get somebody on that offensive line that's a top-notch, another top offensive lineman there, watch out for that Tennessee offense.
Yeah, absolutely. I think they can go offensive line, you know, defensive tackle. You know, they traded one away to the Denver Broncos. You know, I'm not even sure where else they can go, or tight end. You know, I'm not sure if Delaney Walker's still there.
He is, yes.
Is he still there?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Offensive line would probably be perfect then.
So 4 drafted players from LSU. Now, as Ron mentioned, Tennessee is on the clock. Let's head out to Tennessee. Corey Curtis is standing by. Hey, and Corey, what do you think now? What are the Tennessee Titans looking for right here? What are their needs?
Well, I'll tell you what, they don't have any direct needs to plug in as a starter. They've got a lot of depth needs, and this draft has fallen absolutely unbelievably for John Robinson and the Titans. You brought up offensive line. I don't necessarily think that's where they're going to go, but they could go with Josh Jones from Houston. They've given Dennis Kelly a contract to take over for Jack Conklin, but they could add a 6th lineman in Josh Jones from Houston, but they really need a corner to replace Logan Ryan. And we wondered which ones would be available when they picked. Jeff Gladney is still on the board. Christian Fulton is still on the board. Jalen Johnson is still on the board. Trevin Diggs is still on the board. They have their choices of defensive backs, and if they want to add another pass rusher, they've got pass rushers to pick from too. Now, the Titans are like the Patriots. They like big stand-up outside linebackers who can set the edge. Have you seen A.J. Epineza? Have you seen Yetur Gross-Matos? John Robinson has a wealth of choices, and his best one would probably be to trade back with all these guys that he's got to pick from.
All right, so they're getting ready to make the pick right now. Have you heard of a guy named Marlon Davidson, the Auburn kid? Apparently they like this guy also, from what I've been reading, the Titans. Not sure, but have you heard about this kid?
Yeah, absolutely. He and Ross Blackson from TCU, a couple of big guys who can put their hand in the dirt and be very versatile on the defensive line. They've got 2 defensive starters back on the line with Daquan Jones and Jeffrey Simmons, who they took in the first round last year. You mentioned they traded away Jarrell Casey. Those are 2 guys who could come in and be that 3rd defensive lineman for them. Marlon Davidson is a guy who at 300 pounds is very good at moving laterally and has good quickness. The Titans value versatility on their front, and he absolutely gives it to them. And so they say the pick is in, and we're going to find out really shortly. So it doesn't look like John Robinson was able to pull off a trade here, but he's going to get a good football player.
Corey, let me ask you while we're waiting for the commissioner to make that announcement. Marcus Mariota now comes to Las Vegas. What's the feeling in Tennessee with Mariota?
Well, you know, I think fans were largely split. There's a lot of fans who still really like Marcus Mariota and appreciate everything he did. Other fans got frustrated with his injuries. He was kind of a victim of other injured quarterbacks in the past. Jake Locker suffered through a lot of injuries before him. Steve McNair suffered through a lot of injuries before that. And then they had the frustration of Vince Young. So not having the quarterback on the field, I think, got to a lot of people. And then the moment they traded for Ryan Tannehill, some fans were ready to move on. But there's still a large segment of fans here who were sorry to see him go, but understood that it had to happen. But they'll be rooting for him in Las Vegas.
All right, so we're still waiting. The pick is in for the Tennessee Titans here at number 29, waiting for that pick. Kenny, let me ask you before the commissioner makes it, what are your impressions? Who do you think they're going to go with right here?
Hey, you know, they need offensive line help, as he mentioned, and I think that Josh Jones is a guy that's brought up. Ezra Cleveland, as I keep talking about him, Boise is still out there. So Tennessee also needs defensive line help. A guy like Ross Blacklock is out there as well from TCU.
All right, so Josh Jones, you mentioned him. He's got a lot of skill to pick in, waiting for the commissioner. It's been kind of interesting because, well, he's got the card in his hand now. From the time the pick goes in to where the commissioner makes it, a little bit of a delay here, but now the commissioner making that selection, Tennessee 29, and it looks like it's going to be Isaiah Wilson, the offensive tackle from Georgia. Let's go back out to Corey in Nashville. Corey, your first impressions here. They go out and get the big kid. What do you think of this guy?
He's another guy that we've been talking about. He is a massive massive young man, 350, 360 pounds. I just didn't know if they would wait to try to get him in round 2. They like what they have there. He is a mountain of a human being. He's only played 2 years of college football. He's still very young, and he does not have to come in and start in year 1. He can play behind Dennis Kelly, be a 6th offensive lineman for the Titans this year. They thought there was too much there. Look, this team is built to score some points. They've got Derrick Henry in the backfield, A.J. Brown, Corey Davis on the outside with Ryan Tannehill, and now they've got how many? They've got Taylor Lewan at 1 first-round pick. They've got another first-round pick in Isaiah Wilson. They gave Roger Saffold $11 million. They drafted Nate Davis in the 3rd round last year, and they bring back Ben Jones. They are massively invested on the front line. And if this team doesn't score a whole bunch of points this year, it's going to be a big disappointment.
Corey, you mentioned how big this kid is, Isaiah Wilson. You saw the picture. I just saw the picture. The hats didn't even fit. That's how big this kid is.
Yeah. I don't know if they got a uniform that fits him. Look, they've had some big guys in the past. John Runyon was a giant man. Fred Miller was a giant man at tackle for the Tennessee Titans. But I don't know if they've had 350, 360 before. And you can coach a lot of things. Like in the NBA, though, you can't coach 7 feet. It just happens. 360-pound guys, as John Robinson said earlier this week, you don't find them walking around the Walmart parking lot. There aren't a lot of them. And this guy will be a mauler for the Titans and anchor that right side of the offensive line because they have Taylor Lewan anchored in on the left side for the next 5 years.
All right, Corey, thank you very much. We appreciate you spending some time with us tonight out there in Tennessee. Good luck to the Titans as you roll into the new season. Thank you very much. All right, so Isaiah Wilson, Brandon, what do you think? Big guy. You know, we saw the picture of this big man, and as Corey mentioned, this guy is huge.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, they lost Jack Conklin, so this is great. You know, they paid Ryan Tannehill a lot of money. They got him some weapons. Derrick Henry is arguably his best weapon. So why not show up the offensive line so you know those guys can keep rolling?
It's not fair to have somebody his size blocking for Derrick Henry, who's the toughest bruiser of a running back that there is in the league right now. So those two guys coming at you. Oh, and then if you don't want them coming at you, Ryan Tannehill is going to throw over you. And there you go. So Tennessee was right there at the edge last year. This could push them over the top with a battle in the trenches, Chris.
Well, you know, it's interesting. Ken, let me ask you, Corey mentioned that they had their eyes on this Isaiah Wilson for a while. They're in Tennessee. What do your numbers say about this kid?
Yeah, you know, well, it's very interesting. You know, you got a guy from a big-time program in Georgia, so he didn't have a lot of experience, but that size just trumped everything. Like he said, you can't teach 6'7", 340. He's the 2nd biggest lineman in the draft behind Becton from Louisville. He runs well. He runs a 5.26 for a guy his size. That's fast. So he's a guy that's going to be able to open a hole. Hey, football, run the ball, stop the run. That's still important. Even though it's a passing league, the Titans proved that if you can run it and you can stop the run, you're going to be successful, and that's what they did last year.
All right, so Isaiah Wilson was one of those 58 players that were invited by the NFL to be part of this first round of the draft, and you saw the excitement and the emotions on his face, Kenny, as he was picked there by the Tennessee Titans. Well, now Miami is back on the clock, and you know we talk about Miami. They made that trade to move down here with Green Bay. So, Brandon, what do you think right here with Miami? They have all these picks. What are they going to do with this one late in the first round, you think?
Yeah, well, I thought they was going to, you know, at least get a defensive back, maybe a safety, cornerback. They should have up with Byron Jones, and they have Howard on the other side. They could go wide receiver, you know, get some help for Tua and Ryan Fitzpatrick. So I think either receiver or safety.
They need about everything. I mean, certainly with Miami, you could say, because they've got 14 picks in the first round. We talked about that a lot. And in fact, I thought it was sort of interesting that they traded that pick to Green Bay, and now they move. I'm not sure what they got as compensation, but they moved back. They probably got later picks, like they need more. Okay, but Miami Dolphins, anywhere, everywhere, find bodies that are warm that can play and do what and do what they need to do down in Miami to win and start doing some stuff. Kenny?
Yeah, you know they definitely need defense. Ranked 28th in the league last year, allowing 6.2 yards of play. They're the one team I've been saying nobody's going to draft a running back in the first round, but since they have 3 picks. DeAndre Swift, they need a running back. Their leading rusher last year was Ryan Fitzpatrick. So I know they picked up Howard, but I don't know if he's the answer. DeAndre Swift might be their answer at running back.
What about this Jonathan Taylor?
Oh.
Yeah, he's a great running back from Wisconsin. I think he didn't live up to the expectations this year as they thought. They thought he was a Heisman Trophy winner with that offensive line blocking in front of him, but he didn't put up the numbers they thought he could put up. He's projected at around number 37 right now.
Okay, so we'll see what happens. Miami waiting on the clock at number 30. It's been interesting when you think of this draft and the virtual and the 58 players that were invited. Now, each player was given 32 hats. They put the hat on of the team that selected them. And Ron, as you mentioned earlier today, they got this big grab bag of stuff. They got all the hats, and you can't have this drink. You have to have this drink. And there's even a dress code, right, Ron? They had a dress code.
Absolute dress code. They couldn't, for example, best way to describe it, you couldn't, those iPods that you wear that are Apple iPods that you have in your ears to listen. They couldn't use those because the NFL has a contract with Bose for headphones.
Absolutely.
And Microsoft, you see all over the place, the pads that they use on the sidelines are Microsoft, because the late Paul Allen used to own the Seattle Seahawks and got that deal with the NFL to use Microsoft products. So the iPods were outlawed. Don't have those. But crazy. The grab bag was fun. And I am going to get me as quick as I can the Old Spice white robe that Henry Ruggs III wore. I'm serious about that. I want to grab one. I thought that robe was, to me, that's the hit so far of the draft that I enjoyed watching him out there with that.
We're at number 30 here, Kenny and Brandon, and this Xavier McKinney is still on the board. A lot of people projected him to be about a top 15 pick. Well, he's still sitting right out there. It kind of makes you wonder what Miami will do.
I mean, I would go McKinney right here if it was me. I'm a defensive guy anyway, and they were 28th in the league. They obviously could go running back, get an explosive running back in Swift or Dobbins, but I would go McKinney.
I think a lot of people are looking at safety, thinking Grant Delpit's still out there for LSU. My guy Jeremy Chinn's still out there. These teams are seeing some players that they think they can get in the second round, and they're passing. There's been some definite surprises. Isaiah Wilson, I think that was kind of off the board. I think that Isaiah Wilson could have been their second round pick, and the Raiders going with Arnett. That was a very, very, very shocking pick.
All right, so it's interesting. Mike Mayock has worked the NFL Network and all these numbers and with these player evaluations for years and years. And last year, if he can equal success this year like last year, he's going to be fired up. When you think of all the late round, Hunter Renfrow, Max Crosby, all these players, Brandon, that you worked out with in camp there, that Mike Mayock brought in, all these rookies, they really impressed.
Absolutely, and that's why I didn't think they would go defensive line, and I saw the one glaring hole was in the secondary, at corner. So, they got their guy from Ohio State. They got the receiver who's a Blazer, so we'll see what happens.
Henry Ruggs, the Blazer. And David Arnett was an interesting thing that he did. I mean, he could have gone out last year as a junior from Ohio State. He didn't. He stayed his senior year to see if he could up his draft value, which he ended up doing, and played with a cast on his wrist the entire season because he broke his wrist. So there must be something that the Raiders saw in him. I think they probably could have gotten him later. They couldn't, not third round, but they could have traded perhaps and gotten him later. But still, they've sort of hung themselves out there a little bit to say, wait a second, we're going to put our stock in this guy. We're going to go against conventional wisdom and take Arnett from Ohio State. Certainly the pedigree of Ohio State helps. But we'll see. They're going to be under a lot of pressure to make this pick succeed because they took him higher than anybody expected.
He looks like a good press corner. I watched him, his film a little bit. Looks like a good press corner.
All right, so we're waiting right now for the Miami Dolphins, that 30th pick. It is in. This has been kind of a little bit of a delay when the pick is in to where it gets to the commissioner and he steps up and gets it off the computer and through Wi-Fi. But there really hasn't been any major issues considering all the teams, all the technology that's gone into this, and they've done a nice job.
Yeah, an amazing job with everybody in different locations to pull this off the way they have with no glitches. Yeah, 2 thumbs up to the NFL.
All right, so we'll see what happens, Ron.
What bets, Kenny, are we getting close to here at the end of the first round? I know there are a lot of bets on number of SEC players taken in the first round, number of Pac-12 players, number of linebackers, we're getting close to some of those bets now that are either going to go one direction or the other.
Yeah, you're right. Defensive backs at 6.5. That's right on the cusp right now. No running back in the first round. Obviously, if you're sweating that, you only got a couple more selections to sweat out.
All right, so the Miami Dolphins Well, they got the quarterback out of Auburn. What do you think of this guy? Now, this guy, a lot of people like this kid.
Yes, they do. Well, he's got great speed. Another big-time cover corner, and there's been a lot of talk about him. So I'm not going to even try to pronounce his last name.
Let's just say Noah.
Yeah, Noah. That's what he goes by. Look at the excitement here with the Bose speakers on his the Bose headphones on it from Alabama. Interesting pick right here, but a good pick. I've heard about this guy, Brandon, in some of the mock drafts.
Yeah, look, you could never have too many corners. I promise you that. You know, when we won a Super Bowl, we had 3 really good corners. You know, this is a good thing. They got Byron Jones, who got the big payday in free agency. They have Howard on the other side, so this kid will come in and learn and be able to play.
Pedigree is a speedster, man.
Yeah,
He is, and that's what you need to see. And in a pass-happy league that the NFL has become right now, certainly you mentioned that. Cover corners, guys that can tackle out there. You can't just have 10 guys that can tackle out on the field anymore.
Absolutely.
You don't have the luxury of a Deion Sanders who doesn't really want to tackle much, but great cover guy, Hall of Famer, okay, great cover guy. But now you've got to be able to do both if you're a cornerback. You can't just be a cover guy. You've got to hit somebody too.
100%, 100%.
All right,
so the the Auburn Tiger cornerback goes there. Noah to Miami. Just a couple of picks left now. We got Minnesota and Kansas City are still on the clock.
Another SEC player, and there was a lot of money on betting against the SEC. You could take all conferences against the SEC. The under and over was 15.5 for Southeastern players. I think that's going to come very close now with back-to-backs that we didn't expect to be seen drafted in the first round.
What about Ohio State? Were there any numbers on just the Buckeyes?
Yeah, I believe it was 2.5. So their number, they went over their total easily.
Yeah, that's interesting. So 2 picks now. The Minnesota pick is in. We're waiting for the commissioner to make that announcement, and then of course Kansas City wraps up this first round. And it's kind of gone as it really started off quickly. Don't you guys agree? I mean, it was banging along. And now it's kind of settled down, and it's gone to that 4-hour mark.
Well, then there was 2. So, yeah, the first 16
and I think
flew by.
this Minnesota pick is the one they got from the Niners, yes?
Yes, it is.
In the trade, because the Niners should be picking in this spot, but they traded with Minnesota. So this is the Niners pick that Minnesota picked up here. So the Vikings still, you know, a team with a pretty good offense. They got their stuff going on offense right now. Second, everybody needs an edge rusher. You can always say that. Certainly aren't enough of those right now in the draft. Where do you think Minnesota goes here?
Defensive back, but like you said, you can't have too many edge rushers or corners. So, you know, I think they'll go McKinney right here, or the guy from Penn State. I'm not even sure his name or how to pronounce it. But I think the guy from
Gross-Matos. Yeah.
Gross-Matos.
Yeah.
Gross-Matos.
Yes, it's funny. You know, Brandon mentions the McKinney. This guy has. Where was McKinney's?
24.5 was his over and under. Yeah.
And here we are sitting at 31, and he might not even go in the first round.
Gross-Matos, another guy, 26.5. So he's gone over his total. And I agree with you guys. It's going to be a defensive player here, I think.
Yeah.
All right, so we're waiting. The pick is in. We're waiting for the commissioner to make the pick. It's been interesting. You know, we mentioned all the grab bags and all the hats and shirts. I want to show you one more time. This is in Las Vegas because this is the first time anybody's ever seen these hats. I want to bring it up here and just show it to you. Las Vegas Raiders. No one's seen these hats. They made their debuts tonight, and so. The Las Vegas Raiders 2020, you can buy those now. The Vikings pick is in. We're waiting for the commissioner right now to make this pick. And I love the booing behind with the commissioner. If you're you know, well, Gladney is the kid that we've talked about a lot. A cornerback here. Yeah. You know, we've talked about this guy for 3 days now.
We have. He's a talented cover corner. From TCU, is known for their defense. He's a rather smallish corner, but he's got a big-time vertical leap, great speed. He's going to be an outstanding NFL player. And as Brandon said, you can't get enough cornerbacks. I agree with that. Yeah, this is a passing league. 60% of the plays are passes.
Absolutely. And you need it. You need it. You know, you're trying to win a Super Bowl against Patrick Mahomes. You're going to need a bunch of corners.
Well, you speak Patrick Mahomes. Okay, Kansas City's up next. They should just donate their pick back to the NFL just because. What do they need here? Yeah, what does Kansas City need? They're strong as can be at what Mahomes has done at quarterback for that team, and just with the tremendous, maybe running back. Okay, Kareem Hunt hasn't been, you know, around. It's been a couple of years. since they've had him in the backfield.
Yeah.
If they put a running back in that offense.
Haven't you been listening? You can't get enough cornerbacks.
Oh, yeah, cornerbacks. Okay, yeah, you're right. I need to learn. Cornerbacks, and there are plenty of good ones out there, and there aren't very many great running backs that we see out there in the draft. But, yes, there are some good cornerbacks still out there.
Yeah.
Now put a great defense in Kansas City, and the rest of the NFL is going to shake its head collectively and go, what the?
Absolutely.
Do we have to deal with this?
What's the guy's name from Utah, the corner?
Jalen Johnson.
Jalen Johnson, yeah, I like him.
That might be a good pick right here.
Yeah.
They need a good linebacker like Brandon Marshall.
Yeah, tell him to call me.
Come on, you still got your play. You're playing. Wait, you get back out there. It wasn't that long.
I'm still working out.
Good.
Yeah.
Let's head out to Kansas City. We've got Rob Collins out in Kansas City. Rob, I want to get, before the commissioner comes up and makes his pick, what are the impressions? What has to happen with the Chiefs? Where are they looking? What are their needs?
Well, the Kansas City Chiefs are bringing back 20 of 22 starters from the Super Bowl. So you guys just talked about a run on cornerbacks. Jeff Gladney just off the board. That's one of the guys that the Chiefs were targeting. Also, they were looking at linebacker. We saw Patrick Queen go earlier. So the Chiefs may be looking for linebacker here. I would not be surprised if Christian Fulton is their pick out of LSU. You guys talked about running back. A lot of national pundits had DeAndre Swift, maybe some other guys coming to the Chiefs. I don't really see that because Andy Reid can take a mediocre running back and make him shine in his offense, and DeAndre Swift really doesn't play with what Andy Reid likes to do in that offense. He's not that great out of the backfield. He has a problem fumbling the ball. If Andy Reid was going for a running back, which I don't think he will, I think it would be Clyde Edwards-Helaire out of LSU. Great out of the backfield, great hands, great blocker. So I think the Chiefs here are looking for defense and probably going cornerback, if not trading back to get extra picks. Brett Veach likes to have a lot of picks. They only have 5 right now, so Brett Veach could sort of stack the deck right now if he traded back to someone and just got 2 extra picks in the second round.
You know, Rob, you mentioned Andy Reid about 4 minutes before the pick will be turned in here. What's going on with Andy Reid there in Kansas City? I understand the guy is an absolute superstar. Wherever he goes, there's people all around him. Has he become like a kind of a folk hero there in Kansas City?
Yeah, everybody loves Andy Reid, and coming into the Super Bowl season, you saw the national love he got from former players, former coaches, national media types who wanted Andy to finally get the ring because, let's face it, that was the only thing off his resume for a Hall of Fame career. So Andy Reid has that. He walks into barbecue joints ever, and it's like Cheers. It's like Norm walking into Cheers when Coach Reid walks into local barbecue establishment here, man. They just hand him out all kinds of barbecue. So he is definitely Big Red here in Kansas City. Everybody loves Coach Reid.
All right, stay with us, Rob. We want to get your impressions when the commissioner makes the announcement. But Kenny, let me ask you right here. Kansas City, last pick in the first round. It's almost over. What are your impressions right here? What do you think they may do?
I think they need a cornerback, and there's a couple still good ones out there. Talking about Christian Fulton, Trevon Diggs is out there as well. So that's where I think they're going to go is the corner position.
Yeah.
All right, a cornerback. Brandon, you're thinking the same thing with this last pick.
We're on the same page. Cornerback.
Ron?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. And I mentioned running back. I don't think there's a running back. They could at some point, use that position and use some help there in that position. But there aren't running backs available at this point that are legitimate first-round running backs. But there are cornerbacks that certainly are that have dropped down in the draft.
Yeah.
That are available here. I like Diggs.
Yeah, I think
his brother Stephon did pretty well in the NFL, and he's going to jump in and see what he can do now.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, you mentioned, Rob mentioned out there in Kansas City. Rob, let's go back out to you. You mentioned Christian Fulton. Here's a guy that some people said might be the second, third best cornerback in the entire draft, and we're waiting for Kansas City to make that pick. But it's going to be interesting right here with the Chiefs.
Yeah, indeed. Fulton would certainly be a welcomed addition to the Chiefs cornerback roster, kind of the weak point there. And even if they maybe went safety, Tyrann Mathieu can move around in so many places. We've seen Steve Spagnuolo move him in different spots, not just a true safety. He goes up and plays that corner slot. That's a place where the Honey Badger likes to live and likes to collect rent, as he said. But I'm with you guys. I think this is going to be Fulton. If it's not a cornerback, I truly believe they will probably trade back. Maybe that's why they're taking every single minute to see if anybody's on the phone that wants to trade back to come up to the first round.
So we're waiting right now for the commissioner to make this pick. He's almost going to make it, Kenny. This has been an interesting draft with the virtual aspect to the whole thing.
It really is. Well, for me, I've followed this draft closer than any of the other drafts my entire life. So this was all there really was at this point. This is the Super Bowl right now. It's a shame that we couldn't hold the draft here in Las Vegas, because there would have been millions and millions. I'm talking about $50 to $100 million would have been bet on this draft this year in Las Vegas if it was.
Those are
held here.
Super Bowl numbers right there.
Well, 200 is right.
Yeah, I mean those are big numbers.
Yeah.
And you mentioned you've had to put more work into this one than any other one.
Oh boy, there's nothing else to do. There's no baseball. There's no NBA. There's no
by the way.
NHL. So hey, let's do the NFL draft. And now I'm hooked. And now I'm gonna have to do it every year.
Kenny, I told you before. There's Russian ping pong that you can handicap out there. Okay, that you can take a look at that and see what's going on there. Stuff from the Ukraine. But what's interesting now is the NFL has stayed on schedule. A lot of people asked them to push this draft back because of coronavirus, and they didn't. They said they want to keep it on schedule. The next big target date after this is May 9th, when they announce their schedule for the upcoming season. We know who the opponents are going to be, but they will announce their schedule then. So the NFL it's game on with them right now for their schedule. And in spite of what's going on right now in this country and in the world, they so far haven't moved any of their dates back. They're going full speed ahead, hopefully for a start of the season as scheduled. That would be nice to see, wouldn't it, Brandon?
Yeah, no, it would be extremely nice. They already pushed the NBA season back. I was hoping to see LeBron James win another championship, but, hopefully the NFL will start on time, training camp will start on time, and we'll get to see some football.
Yeah, well, it looks like the Chiefs are about to make this pick. The commissioner has now moved to the middle of his basement den to make this pick, and the Kansas City Chiefs with the 32nd pick and final pick in this first round, and they're going to go with Clyde Edwards-Helaire,
who said running back? Wait a minute. Who said running back?
Out of LSU. Who said running back?
Who said running back?
Running back.
I don't know. I forget, but my memory's not real good. But
let's head back out to
it was this
Kansas City. Rob Collins. Rob, let me ask you: are you absolutely stunned with this pick?
A little bit stunned. We mentioned Helaire would be the best fit just a few moments ago because of his pass skill and catching out of the backfield. But I am kind of surprised here that, they didn't go cornerback. With all the cornerbacks left, Brett Veach must think that one of those guys may fall down a little bit. But Helaire, that's a little bit of a surprise, and I'm interested to see how Chiefs Kingdom is going to react to that. We know the Chiefs have several options at running back there, but no clear stud. And we know the exploits of Mr. Helaire, what he did with LSU. So it'll be interesting to see how Chief Kingdom reacts to this. But, hey, you got Patrick Mahomes, another weapon, right? NFL should be on notice.
All right.
Can he take the over in all the Kansas City games next season?
That right.
Because they don't have a quarterback. Their offense is already very strong, and now they have a running back to go with it. Take the over in Chiefs games next year. They might score 50 points a game or so.
Absolutely.
Rob, thank you very much for joining us here tonight on the program. Have a great night. Good luck to the Chiefs. AFC will see you out here in Las Vegas, of all places, this season. What is the thought there in Kansas City with the Las Vegas Raiders now?
I think everybody's looking forward to coming out to Las Vegas to check out the Raiders. The Chiefs have owned the Raiders and everybody else in this division. So folks are hoping that away game to Las Vegas is in the winter months, so we can come out and enjoy some of that Las Vegas sunshine and, beat the Raiders, since Andy Reid seems to own everybody.
All right. Hey, Rob, thank you very much. Have fun. Enjoy that barbecue with Coach Reid. Stay in the corner of the barbecue restaurant so you avoid all those hanger-on. We'll see you. Thanks again. Appreciate that. Well, once again, we've gone through the entire first round. A few surprises. Went quickly. It's over now in 4 hours and 12 minutes. What are your impressions now?
Oh, it was a lot of fun for the Oakland Raiders to start out. For the Las Vegas Raiders. I'm thinking about them. They're on my mind. That's why I brought them up first. They're the Las Vegas Raiders. Getting Henry Ruggs was fantastic to see that. And it's very educational for me. And I tell you what, you really got to look hard at the big-time programs, the Georgias, Ohio States, and Alabamas, where you could get some surprises.
Brandon, what are your thoughts? First round. We appreciate you being here, by the way, tonight. Absolutely. It's been a lot of fun having you in here.
Yeah. Thanks for inviting me. But, I like what the Dolphins have done. I like what the Cowboys did, getting CeeDee Lamb to go along with, Amari Cooper and Dak Prescott. So, you know, there's a lot of things that, like you said, it wasn't a surprise, but it's some good things that happened.
The AFC West that you played in, certainly with the Broncos, strengthened itself, I think, in this draft. Kansas City got a little bit stronger. They don't need to. But the the LA Chargers, much better.
Absolutely. They got Justin Herbert, and they got a great linebacker in Kenneth Murray. The Broncos got Jerry Jeudy, another weapon to go outside Cortland Sutton and to go along with Drew Lock. So it's going to be exciting in the AFC West.
Hey, Brandon, your guy, Xavier McKinney, fell out of the first round.
That's crazy.
Yeah. That is crazy.
That is crazy.
Alabama safety, he didn't go in the first round.
Put the chip on the shoulder.
Well, there you go.
That'll help him.
Yeah.
That's coming from a fifth-round guy who's played a number of years in the league. Hey, let's go around Las Vegas here. We're getting ready. You mentioned, Ruggs and the first pick and how exciting it is in Las Vegas. Here's the debut of the 2020 hat. The Eiffel Tower is absolutely beautiful. Let's go out and get some beauty shots here. Want to show you Las Vegas one more time. Didn't have the draft here in 2020. We're having it back here in 2022. The commissioner made that announcement today, so the draft back in Vegas in 2 years. The floating stage will be here. Allegiant Stadium will be open by then, so you'll be able to go inside, but just a beautiful facility. Don't forget the high roller. Tonight they had colors of all the teams, so that was impressive. Just a great night. I'm glad they went on with the show. It's like the circus for the NFL. The show must go on, and it went on despite the virtual reality thing.
Well, it really did. I think it was really good for the country, too. It's really, everyone's been looking forward to this. Big night. It's a big weekend, and I think that there'll be a lot of eyeballs in the second day and the third day of the draft.
All right. Well, we appreciate that. You saw a shot right here. 2020, Las Vegas Raiders making history with their first two picks out of Las Vegas. For Brandon Marshall, thank you very much. Ron Futrell, and for Kenny White, appreciate you all being here tonight. It's been a fabulous evening. The 2020 first-round draft is over. It's in the books. Don't forget tomorrow and on Saturday it continues. Have a good night, everybody.